All right, and so we meet again to rank 64 players for the 2022 NHL entry draft. We've got a pretty good turnout. We've got Mitch, we've got Lauren, we've got Jimmy, we've got Cam Robinson, Dylan Griffing, David St. Louis, Marek Novotny. I don't know why I went wrestling announcer on that, but I think it adds a little hype to the whole deal. Really looking forward to this exercise. We've had to delay it a bit, but now we've got everyone on board, and I suppose we will grant the floor to Lauren to talk about Shane Wright, who is a prohibitive favorite at number 1.
Yeah, so we obviously know that, maybe his production has not been, where we normally see first overall picks, produce in their draft years, but I don't think it's a case of whether he still deserves to go first overall or not. It's that no one else has sort of passed him yet for that spot. And for that reason, I think that's why I still have him at number 1. I don't think, I think maybe the gap has closed a lot since the beginning of the season, but I don't think anyone's passed him yet. So that would be my main argument. He's still, that, reliable two-way center, driving play, connecting his line mates. He's on a heater lately. He's got 8 points in his last 2 games. He's consistently kept building on his game throughout the season. And I don't think right now there's a player who's passed him yet.
And if we did have that conversation, who would we be talking about? For me, it would be maybe Frank Nazar. If I wanted to go Leroy Jenkins at this juncture, we could also talk about Simon Nemec. We could talk about David Jiříček. I don't think the appetite would be there for Cooley, but the floor is open to anyone who wants to start this discussion.
I have Jiříček around this spot. He's not ahead of Wright for me, but I think he's a contestant for the number 1 overall pick. It's too bad he got injured at the World Junior Championship because he played like 8 minutes or something, maybe 10. And it was some of the best 10 minutes I've seen at the World Junior Championship for a draft eligible player. He was shutting down Canada, I think it was. He was playing good defense. He was the main transition motor of his team. And it was just really great hockey he played there. So it's a bit too bad about the injury, but I think he has a ton of strengths as a player. His rush defense, his in-zone defense, he's super aggressive. He's better on regroups when he has options in front of him to make passes, but he's also good on retrievals, and he's improving in that aspect. Or he was improving before he got injured. So I think he has a ton of upside. I worry a bit about the skating. It's a bit not as good as I first thought in the first meeting. I think he has some issues, but overall he has the tools to add even more skills, and he's very physical. He's very engaged, and coaches are going to love that. So I have him number 2, honestly.
Anyone else? I mean, Cam, I know Nemec is your boy, and I bet you want to champion his cause right now.
Yeah, of course. I obviously still have Wright at number 1. I've had them Wright, Nemec 1-2 most of the season, if not the entire time here. So, I've said it all before. I love his poise. I love the upside. I think he's gotten significantly better throughout the season. I think his offensive game has really popped. He's looking at, some more creative escape routes. He's making some quicker plays to transition the puck. He can still get a little bit turned around when some speedy 30-year-olds are coming down on him. He didn't have a great, like David was saying, we only got 30 seconds of Jiříček, but we got a full couple of games out of Nemec, and he wasn't great. That wasn't his best performance there, but back home playing there, he's a really standout player to me that I see as like a locked in second pair type with the intelligence. He's, not a big player, but he plays smart. He's got a good stick. I think he's going to adjust to that speed coming down the wing as he matures too. So I do see a lot of offensive upside in his game, something that we were kind of questioning a little bit earlier on in the season. He's walking the line better at the top of the umbrella on the PP, though, just trying more creative plays. I think I really like to see that. The points are starting to flow a little bit here. So yeah, he's my number 2 with a bullet. It's kind of he's been locked into that spot for me, and I don't really see anyone pushing up unless it may be Frank Nazar, and he's had a nice, really strong second half too, and I love his creativity. So he's right in that mix too at 3 for me.
And is he activating off of the blue line more frequently? Because that was one of my issues with Nemec through at least the first half of the season, was it felt like he was stapled to that blue line. Not a lot of getting involved in cycle plays, not a lot of deception. Big shot though. Credit where it's due. I mean, he's not Matejchuk. Like he's not involved in every play ever. But I do see him activating more down the wall, pinching. He's figuring that out, the timing of it a little bit better.
And then, even doing some of those kind of down the wall, cut back, going across the blue line, sending a drop pass to his winger who's coming up to cover for him, sort of thing, opening up and getting the one-timer back. So kind of more fluidity to his game at the top of the point there too. So I think you're right. That was my main concern with him early on in the season, was like, he's just at the point and he's sitting there and he's not really doing much until he's backpedaling to get back on defense so that he doesn't get turnstile. But you can see as the year has worn on is that he's definitely got more confidence, and as he should, right? This is his third year playing up in that top pro league. He split time as a 15, 16-year-old, but now it's second year of full-time play at that level. And so, the confidence and playing against that level of player should be there by now. And so I think he's going to transition really well to North America too. I think that his game will really suit. It depends on what system he goes to. Hopefully, whatever it is, they kind of nurture his more creative side and really engage him and put him with a player that can maybe sit back a little bit more and allow him to run and gun a little bit. But no, for me, I like Jiříček a lot too. I think he's got a high upside. Those guys, and along with Cooley, they just run 2 through 6 for me, and I think that's a tier in their own.
Marek, what's your take? I mean, this is your region. You've seen a lot of Jiříček. You've seen a lot of Nemec. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You can correct me if I'm not. What's your take on this? Because I feel like the battle isn't about first overall. It's about 2 and 3, and I think it's between Jiříček and Nemec, if I'm reading the room correctly. So Marek, where would you stand on that?
Well, like the boy said, this is really close between these two. I've been dealing with the question who's better throughout the whole day today. And Jiříček had a great game against Canada at the World Juniors, right? And he was very aggressive. There was a moment when he was hit by Jake Neighbors 2 times, and I was like, damn, he's like struggling. But since that moment, he kind of stepped up, and he was incredible offensively. He was still looking for some opportunities. The difference I see between these two is Jiříček has probably a better certainty of joining the NHL, and the upside is probably a little bit higher than Nemec. He's more aggressive, and I like it more. And the aggressive tool and the physical style is something the NHL teams will like. I also have to mention that Nemec was part of the Slovak group at the Olympic Games in China, right? And he was tremendous during the first 2 games against Sweden and Finland. Those guys had some issues like with dealing with him. His gap control is amazing. He's a really smart and poised player. So the difference is definitely in the style of game they're playing. So I would say I'm slightly on a Jiříček side, but it's really, really close. And really depends on teams and what they want at the moment during the draft. I go with Jiříček and then Nemec.
We also have Lassi's work to take into account, and he has Nemec ahead of Jiříček as well. Maybe we should take a vote. Okay, so we'll do Jiříček at 2, Nemec at 3, and then I think it's Nazar at 4. Am I getting the room right on that one? And Mitch, can you talk about what you've seen from Nazar as you've converted to the cause?
Well, you start at the start of the season. He's obviously a very explosive, very dynamic, very creative player. But what separated him from, say, the other NTDP players was how he attacks the inside lane. Now, as the season has progressed, we start seeing him use more give and goes. He's playing more deceptively with the puck. He's moving it quicker. You see a lot of plays, especially passes off his backhand now. So he's not trying to constantly try to work the puck back to his forehand and pass through guys. The pace is really high. And of course, the defense can be hit or miss, but I think it mostly projects as a strength to the next level just because of how quick he plays, because, he wants to be the guy with the puck on his stick. He's very Cole Sillinger in that sense where, as the stakes get higher, the engagement is going to get higher. So for me, after Wright, he's pretty clearly the next best forward. Like, I think we're pretty much talking about a top 6 forward, almost guaranteed. It's the draft, so it's never for sure, but close enough.
Yeah, his evolution during the season has been really, really impressive. He was a very inefficient player at the start of the year. He tried to dangle everyone, and last year he did that too. But now, instead of attacking 3 defenders by himself, he uses his teammates. So he kicks the puck wide, he drops it, and doesn't have the best support on his line. We're going to come back to this maybe later, but he's becoming.
Don't say.
So he's becoming the connector of that line. He's really the centerpiece of it. He plays. I underestimated his defense in the first half of the year. It's getting to be more of a strength for me. And yeah, he has better tools than the majority of players in the draft, and he's pretty dynamic. And like Mitch said, I really like his inside game. He's really great in the way he manages to find pockets of space around the slot, and attacks the net at the right time. He is going to finish some scoring chances in the NHL. And yeah, there's a team in our top 5 right here. We're looking for upside, but these are more certain players. Jiříček, Nemec, Nazar, Wright. Those players should play in the NHL. If they don't make it as their top role, they're going to have a fallback game. They're going to play down the lineup too and have some impact anyway.
Well, and the other great thing about Nazar is that, like, statistically, his profile is really strong. And even like the underlying like tracking data, he has the 3rd best profile of any NTDP forward in the last 4 seasons. So, only passed by Jack Hughes and Trevor Zegras. Matt Boldy, worse results. Cole Caulfield, also worse results. Thomas Bordeleau, worse. So, what Nazar is doing this year is pretty special. And then you consider the fact that his game is going to improve quite easily. As he develops his skating mechanics, he's only going to become much faster because he's already explosive. His crossovers, he has that really good like undercut that really drives him and launches him forward. Once he gets more projectable, deeper posture in his stride, his skating is going to reach another level. It might be the most toolsy player in the draft after Jiříček.
Well, let's Joey sent me a text. So this is what Joey said. Nazar has a higher ceiling. He's got a better toolkit than Cooley, and he loves to play inside the dots. But he can cause over-reliance on his hands, and that's his main concern. With Cooley, the passes are more perimeter, but it is more projectable, and I think that's what's driving his projection, which has Cooley ahead of Nazar. But I still think the group has Nazar at 4, Cooley at 5. Does that seem reasonable?
I think there's another challenger here, Slavkowski. I don't know if
Marek wants to. Didn't expect that from David.
I really changed my opinion on him. I had him outside of the top 10. I'm just going to talk a bit about him, and I'm going to leave the floor to Marek after that. But I was really wrong about him. I underrated his hockey sense, and I know it's a small sample size, the Olympics, but he showed me some things that I didn't really expect. So he showed me better anticipation, better processing of the play, and he was just as dominant, just as confident against tougher opposition sometimes, and he scored a ton too. But it's really, again, he's a player that's super easy to project to the NHL. He has the inside game, the physical game, the handling ability, and he can play around the net. Like, he's a safe projection, and he has a ton of upside because he has a ton of skill too. So I really changed my view on him, and I think he should be in consideration for around this spot.
And Cam, you've seen a ton of Slavkowski. You wrote about him. What do you think?
Yeah, I watched way too much film on him, but it was great because like I went into it kind of more on David's side of things, where I was thinking it was going to be maybe a little more negative than the world expected. That I had question marks about the skating, I had question marks about the IQ, and the more I watched and like even going back to his draft -1 and kind of working through the progression, is that I became more and more impressed with his game, and then obviously culminating the Olympics, and the goals were great. How often is he going to find himself walking down Broadway with all the room in the world? That didn't matter, but he can burn it past a goalie when he has that spot. So the goals were cool and everything, but it was his entire game that really impressed me the most. His ability to absorb contact and spin off it and accelerate out of it. His board play, like he's so strong, and like he's just really aware of where his body is, where the other opponent is on his hip pocket, and how he can utilize that. So he's got those fake cuts. He can lean into it, and then he's got the depth to come out. I think his stride has actually come a long way this season alone too. So, in that article I was showing where, he's up on the balls of his feet, he's trying to accelerate, and he's really upright, and he's not extending his leg, and he's just wasting so much power. And then, you look at him now, and he's deeper down. It's still not great. It's still not perfect. Like, I'd probably get up around a 5 now. But it's an improvement that you can see that he's obviously focusing on that aspect of his game. And I love to see that out of players that have that wherewithal to be like, okay, I'm big, I'm strong, I can work the boards really well, I have a nice shot, but I need to improve my skating. And he's clearly trying to work on that. And his passing game, I also enjoy his passing game too. He's got soft hands. He can set up his dekes really well, but he can also set them up, draw those players into him, and then make a nice soft touch across the way too. So I think he absolutely deserves in this. Like when I said that group, like for me, it's Nemec, Nazar, Cooley, Slavkowski, Jiříček. Like that is a group in my mind. And then Matejčuk's kind of right on the cusp of it as well. But you can put those guys in any order for my mind, and I think that's fair.
And Marek, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, well, we have the best goal scorer of the Olympic Games, right? It's very impressive to score 7 goals in 7 games. Slavkowski is really strong on the cycle. He protects the puck really well. He has a solid ability to cut inside and then feed his line mates with some great passes or just simply shoot the puck. He's really strong in the net front presence. Like he's routinely looking for deflecting the incoming shots. He's really dangerous in the area of between the circles and in front of the net. He brings energy to every shift, and where I see a big advantage of drafting Slavkowski is when the playoff part of the season comes, because he plays with such force. He's an incredible power forward, really strong along the walls. He's really hard to knock off the puck. This is my view on him.
Do we want him ahead of Cooley though? That would be a bold play.
I do, but
I think you want Cooley in the second round, David. So
I want him right after, maybe.
Okay, well, I'm feeling Cooley ahead of Slavkowski still, but we should note that Lassi has Slavkowski from 3 to 5, so this would be the low end of his range. What's the group's take on this? Like, do we have anybody who would vouch for Cooley ahead of Slavkowski?
I have my head one spot ahead right now.
Yeah,
I have Cooley ahead of Slav right now. Yeah.
Mitch, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much just a different version of the Nazar Cooley argument. Just you're projecting things slightly differently, but it's risk averse being, taking a little bit of a safer projection. Of course, Cooley is kind of inverting that a little bit because he has decided that he's Mr. Highlight Reel every single shift now.
Why?
Just to piss you off, David.
It's one of these things where it's going to come down to who's better in the NHL is going to come down to the team that drafts them. It's going to be super specific. Slavkowski is going to be the type of guy, a team that wants to kind of slow things down and is willing to try to build offense through movement and stuff like that from the corners. And Cooley is going to be a little bit more of a versatile fit for what most teams are trying to do. And of course, with Slavkowski, you have to have a high tolerance for risk.
Which I think lends itself to Cooley, probably. Does it not? The more sound projection of two similar players.
I'm fine with both. I just want to explain myself with Cooley. I think we talked a bit about Nazar becoming more efficient as the season went on. Cooley just did the reverse path. So I think he overplays right now. He overestimates his own skill, and he's making some turnovers that you don't need to do. But it doesn't change his projection that much. He's still the same smart connector, projects as a defensive player too. He's going to be a playmaker on the line, and I think he's going to be smarter about his plays as he rises in levels. It's just right now that he's experimenting, and it has a positive aspect too, because he's also expanding his skills. I think he's a better manipulator right now than he was at the start of the season. And it's probably because he's trying so many plays. So you got to give him credit for this. So I don't mind if we have him at 5 and Slavkowski at 6. For me, they're pretty much one after the other.
So why don't we do that then? Cooley, then Slavkowski. So I feel like Yurov has lost the grip on what would be 7. He was 5 last ranking, correct? I feel like Minchukov's made a charge for that spot. I feel like Savoy or Savoy, one of the two. I don't know. David, don't you laugh at me? I see you laughing. Savoy.
Western Canadians.
Yes, that's right. He's lost the grip on 5. Honestly, I just keep coming back to Minchukov. I am fully Minchukov pilled. The activations, the deception on retrievals, the skating posture, like there's just so much to like about his game, so much that projects as a modern NHL defenseman. So, you know what? I feel like Lauren should have the floor though, because we've got a ton of reports on Minchukov, and has come full circle. A bit of skepticism to start the season, and now fully embraced the Minchukov ranking.
Right. Yeah. So I think I was definitely very skeptical of Minchukov at the beginning of the season. I think it was a lot of high risk, high reward plays that I was not sure, depending on which team drafts him, would translate, because a lot of NHL coaches are very risk averse. But I don't think there's any argument that Minchukov is the best OHL defenseman coming out of this draft. He's just dominant on every shift, on every night. He's producing, he's activating off the point. He is down below the hash mark sometimes and making plays from behind the goal. It is just, he is all over the place, but his movements are very calculated. He's not putting himself in those, high risk situations without taking stock of the situation on the ice and, feeling that that's the best play he needs to make on the ice. And he's fast enough to get back if he is caught, and it's rare that he is. So I think, he's really established himself as a tremendous offensive defenseman who with, high defensive upside as well. I think maybe the only defenseman at this point out of the OHL who could challenge is Christian Kyrou. And I think he's maybe, late first, second. So it's really not, any competition out of the OHL. I like Minchukov here. I mean, I had him in the 10 to 15 range, but that was more because I thought maybe there were players around the other leagues that might, be forcing their way into the top 10, but I'd be fine with Minchukov here.
We should also talk about, not to derail the Minchukov talk, but Joachim Kemmel was pretty high last ranking, and he hasn't even come up yet. I believe he was second? Last board.
That was a mistake.
It was too reliant on his hands. Doesn't project particularly well. But how do we address this? Like, are we just going to fade him like aggressively? Because I feel like already if he joined the board now, it would be 5-spot drop. How far can we drop Kemmel, and how do we justify that decision? Where did we get it wrong last time? Who's seen a lot of Kemmel since we don't have Lassi with us?
I have. I watched him a lot, and just to make sure I was certain about me dropping him, I have him at 10 right now, and it's a pretty huge drop. I just overrated I saw him as a bit like Wright, someone who moves away from the puck, finds pocket of space, scores with a pretty good shot overall. But I also thought he was a better playmaker and better with his decisions. I find there's a lot of European patterns in this game. So he's going to, when he finds himself under pressure by our defense, he's going to rim the puck, send it into space for his teammate to rush at it and get it back. It's things that you won't be able to do on North American ice. I think he's going to adapt because he's smart. He's definitely smart. He struggled also at the World Junior Championship. I don't put too much stock into that, but it's still another variable that you have to add. So right now I see him at the NHL level as kind of a second liner, third liner who's going to score by, again, moving away from the puck, timing himself into pockets of space and playing a bit of defense, making the occasional passing play. But his skills are just more limited than other players we have ahead of him, like Frank Nazar, Slavkowski, and his game is more limited too. And he has to adapt more of it to translate to NHL ice, I think, than some of the other players we have ahead of him. So he's a higher projection. That's why I dropped him all the way to 10.
And Cam, have you seen a lot of Kemmel?
Yeah, I have. I've always been a little questioned on his high end upside, even when he was, shooting the lights out there. I have him I think I have him at 8 right now, which I think I still think he's a top 10 player in this draft. If he's 10, that's fine with me too. But I think he's right around in that zone where, like David said, I think he's more middle 6 upside. Now, as soon as I say that out loud, I always get texts from team side guys being like, "You're going to take somebody in the top 10 who's got middle 6 upside. Like, why aren't you swinging on someone deep?" Like, I got the same thing about Urov, who I've got right around that same zone too. I think they're both going to be NHL players. I think they're both going to be able to contribute in different ways. Maybe Urov is going to be more demonstrative defensively with the way he plays than Kemmel's going to be. maybe Kamel's got a little more scoring upside to him, and maybe he can leverage those hands that he's so reliant on, that he can, elevate them to a level that he can be like a really impactful second liner, or maybe a passenger on a first line. I think that, we should note that he has struggled post injury, and that's obviously impacted his play here later on in the season. So, the first half of the season he wasn't as good as he looked. And I think the second half of the season, he's not as bad as he looks. So the truth is somewhere in between, which is probably where we projected him in the preseason, where we all kind of liked him. We're like, this is going to be a pretty good player, like definitely a top half of the first round guy, maybe a top 10 player. And that I still think that's where he's going to be, and where he should be, in that kind of 8 to 12 range.
I don't know how many of you read EP Ringside Finland, but Lassi recently posted a good little article explaining, comparing Kemel, Slavkowski, and Lambert. And one of the big differences of Kemel in 2022 versus 2021 is that he's actually a better playmaker now, like considerably. He's passing more into the slot, creating more scoring chances for his teammates. So I don't think the second half has been entirely a waste for him, but there is definitely some concern as the shooting percentage comes back down to earth, and subsequently the tools look a little bit more, let's say, requiring refinement.
Brushing up on my finish. I'll get to that article. So are we comfortable then with Minchukov at 7? Because I feel like I am. The tools are exceptional. The thought process is exceptional.
I think we should talk
A lot of fun.
Savoy and Lambert here.
And Matejchuk, I really like him too.
Yeah, maybe.
Ahead of Minchukov, though?
Well, I do personally have him ahead. He's 8 or 9 months younger too. I just love the upside with his game, like how he is unafraid to do basically anything. And sure, it doesn't always work. But
sometimes
I think
to his detriment, I would say.
Absolutely. Like, we've seen it, and Mitch has talked about it too, is that there isn't a puck that he hasn't wanted to be a part of, like a play that he's not willing to jump up and get a little touch on. Like, the guy, he loves having the puck on his stick. And I just think it's going to develop really, really well for him. That's, he's going to have to get into a system, and they're going to have to rein him in a little bit, but still, I want a player who's unbridled at the junior level and is trying all that crazy stuff. Like we kind of, not we as a group, but in general, he kind of slagged Makar a little bit when he was playing in the AJ. We're like, look at this guy. He's a rover. Like he's not playing any position. He's going to have to corral it in so much. It's like, well, or maybe he doesn't. Matejchuk's not obviously at that level of skill, but I really like his upside. And I think that in the next couple of years, like, his game's going to continue to just pop, and those numbers are going to keep coming with it.
Now picture you have those things, but instead he's 6'1", a better skater, a better passer, a better puck handler. That's Pavel Mintyukov. Just the projection with Mintyukov is significantly easier. Matejchuk's more limited mechanically. Skating wise, he has a few issues. Matejchuk, that is, he pushes his head forward, so he has a really bad forward head lean, and so his whole stride comes unglued once he gets moving. His acceleration is fine. Once he gets moving, he kind of narrows, his feet kick, he doesn't generate a ton of power. Of course, we believe that he's going to offset all those things. He's an amazing player, don't get me wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, the Mintyukov versus Matejchuk thing is, you're picking two versions of the same player. One of them is just the discount variant.
I'd love to see where he's at in the 8 or 9 months when he's the same age, because I do put a lot of weight into that point as well. Maybe not a lot.
Mintyukov didn't play last year, and Matejchuk did.
I was about to say that he lost that developmental time, and I also, cards on the table, I've watched more Matejchuk than I have Mintyukov too, so that's going to play into my role. We have so many OHL reports that I'll go and watch a guy for a game, and I'm like, well, there's 30 reports.
Yeah.
I'll get leaned on in the team, right? Once we get into this realm, I'm not going to have too much of an opinion too strongly about the OHL guys, just because you guys have had so many eyes on them so often too. So I've been leaning elsewhere.
Lauren is a machine. So who do we want at 8 then? I mean, we had Matejchuk. Did we not have Matejchuk at 7 last time? And Cam gave a pretty
6,
good,
I think.
pretty good endorsement.
I have Matejchuk over him as well, over Savoy.
Over Savoy, yeah. And what about Yurov? I mean, just so we can get Dylan involved. Our Wisconsin Russia correspondents.
Oh God.
No, I have Yurov out of the top 10, and I have Cherkasov in it.
Oh boy.
I don't agree with that, but I agree with
Dylan's ready to go to war.
Yeah,
The club debate.
I'm the martyr. I'm the martyr for Cherkasov. I have him at 4th in my list, which is very different than everyone else. But I've just been way more impressed with him compared to Yurov, especially. I think that Cherkasov has been dominant in the MHL. Yurov has been not quite as much, even though he has more points. I don't know. He's doing a lot more cheating for offense. He's just hanging out at the red line, whereas I've seen Cherkasov doing a lot more, hard work, and he's been playing on like the 3rd line for them for home squared. Yurov's got on one of the best lines in the entire league. But just the development Cherkasov has had from last year to this year, and from beginning of the year to now. Because beginning of the year he was struggling to complete passes, and I think that's something that was talked about a lot at the last meeting. How he was just trying to kill his teammates at all times.
Yeah, sending pucks in the hips and shin pads.
He was using it as a weapon to try to move up the lineup. But he's kind of reeled that in. He's a lot better at executing his passes. He's just an incredibly smart player. He's one of the smartest players in this draft that I've seen. Super physical. He's just shows up everywhere on the ice, and that upside that I see with him is like I see a player that can be in the top 6. Obviously, draft position for him is going to be much lower. He's lower on like every other list, and now the whole Russian factor. But for me, he's just been incredible this year. He's my boy for the year, and especially compared to Yurov, I have him quite a few spots ahead.
How do we square the fact that Cherkasov is only like a point a game against teams in the top 3rd of the Eastern Conference, which is like worse than the AJHL?
Well, I think the ice time would be the way to square that circle. What is his
but
point?
He's still
60?
playing like 15, 16 minutes a game. Like that's pretty much top 6-minute forwards, depending on how they deploy things, especially even strength.
I was going to say, this reminds me of Denisenko, but looking at how Denisenko's career has played out, I don't know if that's a feather in my cap.
If only he could skate like Denisenko.
Well, he can outthink Denisenko, I'll tell you that much right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think
David Wright has lots of tools, more likely to hit himself in the face with them.
That's the Denisenko gambit. But I don't think we're going to have Trikozov. And Dylan, I am as sympathetic to the Trikozov cause as anyone. But I don't think he'll be in the top 10 just based on the full body of work by the group. We don't want to reluctantly place players. I'm
in favor of dropping Yurov though a bit outside of the top 10. I think there are better players.
That was my lead into saying that Dylan doesn't want Yurov in the top 10. We don't want to reluctantly place players that high on the board, so we don't do that, right? So who do we place in that spot? And I feel like Matejchuk, maybe Savoy. Those would be the 2 players who might factor into that spot.
Do we like Lambert more than Matejchuk, or is it the opposite?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I like Lambert a lot more.
I still have real concerns about Lambert.
Yeah. There are many.
His sense is not great.
It's not great.
Speaking
Shies
of
away from the middle of the ice,
players.
the pros.
We also have a problem evaluating him because in the environment that he plays, and Lassi keeps telling me that it's not too bad, but when I watch his games, he has no support, like 0. He can't complete a play because his teammates aren't there, and it's because he moves ahead of the play too fast. He's also responsible for that, but he has no chemistry whatsoever. And we saw what happened at the World Junior Championship, where he could play with better players who understood his game and could complement it. He came alive. It was 2 games against weaker formations, and I don't put too much stock into that, but he's still one of the more toolsy players in this draft. In fact, he has the best tools by far. I gave his skating an 8, so it's close to the maximum, and his handling skill is pretty close. He's super agile. His weight shifts. He's manipulative. He has so much room to add more skills. Like, he's a great development project. He doesn't read the game all that well sometimes, and his effort can lack, his awareness can lack in some instances, and the environment makes it very hard to evaluate him. He's a bit older in the draft. There are many knocks against him, but when we're talking about a top 10 player in this draft in particular, I think he's a really good candidate.
Well, this would be the absolute high end of Lassi's ranking for Lambert.
Where does he have him?
7 to 12, which is the same as Kemel. Just saying. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot more enthusiasm for Matejchuk, truthfully.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like
Lambert gives me like Alex Nylander vibes. He gives me kind of Nylander vibes.
I don't know. I'm with
He's
you
more
on
skilled than
skepticism
Nylander.
about Lambert, but I just had no time for Nylander even in his like draft year, so I'm like, I don't know.
But
One
he
day
was
I'll
all
write a
wheels and hands,
retrospective.
right?
I'll write a retrospective on him one day. Like the skating was an issue, like not in terms of like, oh, it's going to be significantly below NHL average, no, but you know, there's a big tools gap. And then the other part of it is that Buffalo was like, hey, how about we take this guy who the only thing that he did was the World Juniors and a playoff series and put him in the AHL and just watch him burn.
We call that the
Oh, they
Ua
ruined
Levy
him for
equation.
4-1
4-1 out for our boy. Okay, let's go with Matejchuk. And I think like
Feels weird.
Sorry?
It feels weird to have Matejchuk this high given the tools, but like I love his game and I love everything. Like
And
I
you
love how
have
he
him in this
plays and
spot.
everything.
I just checked out your board.
Yeah,
I know,
I
it's
don't
just-
agree with it either. I really don't agree with it. But
Well, I don't rank any of the European players on my board.
This is true. Well, you have
So,
Nemetz and
I have the
Jiříček.
two defensemen.
Yeah.
I have the two defensemen.
So
But
you're
I like-
missing what Slavkowski, right? Is that the only guy you're missing? out of your
Kemmel,
board there?
Lambert. The thing is, I've
Kemmel.
only seen
Well,
Lambert
are
3
you-
times
you
this
want
year.
them ahead of them? Yeah, and see, like I think Kemmel should be behind Matejchuk, but should be ahead of Lambert and probably you're off there. Maybe the rate side by side.
I think we could comfortably go Matejchuk, Lambert, Kemel. Or were you saying Kemel ahead of Lambert, Cam?
I was, yeah. I have. Let's see here. Where is it? I've got Lambert, I think, at 11. I even have Savoy ahead of him, but I think that's not. I don't feel very strongly about either of those two at this point.
David, what do you think of Savoy over Kemmel?
me,
Yeah, you.
I hate them both.
I didn't hear my name. I have Savoy ahead of Kemmel. I just like the tools more. I'm a tools guy in this draft again.
Well, you're a tools guy in this moment until we finish the board, and then you're a sense guy.
There's just, yeah, maybe. There's just so much more in this game. Like, yeah, they read the game the same way. They have the same off-puck game. Savoy projects even better defensively in some games that I watch. The skills is better. The smaller skills are much better. Like Savoy is more physical. He has more physical skills, can better absorb contact, spin off a bit, and create from the boards than Kemel. He has skating. I don't know. I like his skating a bit better than Mitch Savoy, but even his shooting skills, I think Savoy's are better. It's his handling skills. Everything is better for me. And Savoy's toolkit and game overall than Kemel. So it's not even a contest for me.
And Cam, you have Savoy ahead of Lambert?
Yeah.
I do.
I'm sorry for asking that question. I unleashed a quagmire upon us. I was hoping
Again,
Dave would take the other angle, and then we would have solved it.
Mitch just
Yeah,
lobs
yeah.
a grenade into the middle of the room and just enjoy, fellas.
Chaos grenade.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's
honestly
put
like
some.
this is just like a group, right? Like it's just a bunch of dudes kind of in a similar group. So, we can throw them in any order and it's not going to be the end of the world at this point. I think we'll really have to like plant our flag come June, right? Is when we'll have to fight tooth and nail over every spot.
I should also add that I'm like increasingly of the mind that Geeky might be better than Savoy.
Didn't I
It's
see
possible.
Mitch? Didn't you have Savoy like ranked like 5th in WHL ranking like 2 days ago? I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
so I
man,
watched him a
down by
couple of
20?
times since then.
Like
I
let's
watched him a
put
couple
it
of times
this way:
since
if Savoy was like 4 inches taller, like he would be getting pilloried for the lack of even strength production. It's true.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
He would be like fully. It's
Yeah.
definitely concerning. So what do we do then? Let's put some names down. So Matejchuk, Lambert, Savoy, Kemmel.
Yes.
All right.
and then you're off or what?
I have him at 12.
Yeah, like who else are you going to put a heavy year off here?
Geeky, maybe?
I
So,
wouldn't.
No?
You want a third line center, maybe fourth line?
Oh, come on. That is.
I did the deep dive on him early in the year, and I was not loving it. But
He's a different player now.
Yeah, okay.
Hands, he gets
I did check in.
inside.
I saw some games in January, and it was better. But the skating, the pace. I got concerns. I've got concerns, but I should watch some more recent games if we're saying he's really taking a step up. But I was seeing bottom
really?
6 upside. Yeah.
Really is a little bit of a stretch, but he's improved. All right, he's improved enough that, and Savard's moved down enough that like it's a competition. There's
a reason I didn't air that take as we were ranking. It was more of like this is my Leroy Jenkins moment. Like, when David just lobs in a take for us, so we have to like work around that, one of those. So Yurov ahead of Geeky then would probably be the room's
I agree.
decision.
And Korchinski ahead of Geeky.
I was gonna say it.
Me too.
Well, let's hear we got a log on Trykozov from Dylan. What do you think about Yurov and his the progression through the season?
I haven't seen much progression this year, to be totally honest.
Okay, well, that's always encouraging.
Yeah,
fair,
he's like he's not like a KHL player, and that's clear. He was getting 3 minutes a night. He didn't like earn any more, and it just comes down to like what does he do there? And it's like, well, he's mostly just kind of a checking guy, it seemed, and then like sometimes he'd show up offensively, a lot of kind of off the puck stuff. He's not quite quick enough to beat KHL players. He wasn't able to identify pockets super quickly, and once those pockets closed, that's when he struggled. And that's something that he doesn't have an issue of in the NHL, because NHL pockets don't close. They just stay open forever, and you have all the time in the world to kind of attack those. But like for what he is, he's a very smart player, and that's kind of what kind of keeps him this high, is how smart he is, how he's a problem solver. He's not gonna like blow you away with his skill or with his speed or anything like that. But he solves problems. He's responsible defensively. He takes up space. He closes guys off. It's just I'm not sure what he is, because you're working with such a small sample, and then when he drops down to the MHL, he's kind of just this completely different player where you're not seeing so much of that like smart playmaking. He's kind of just trying to do everything himself. He takes a lot of shots, like a ridiculous amount. And in the past couple of games I've watched, he's just been shooting. So it's been really tough to get a full read on what he is. And I brought up his identity before, and that he's struggled to find that. And it's just because there's that lack of ice time. He's basically playing a different role each game. There's no real consistency. If you want to, if I just show someone a game of Danil Yurov to describe what he is, I wouldn't be able to do that, because it's all kind of a varying player. And so it's just a tough read. The upside, I think, is more like a third liner, and I'm not sure I want that super high in this draft.
That's fair. This would be on the high end of where you have him placed, 10 to 18. This would be 12. Anyone want to vouch for Yurov?
I see him as a middle 6 wing too, with more of a defensive player. Even when I watched him, what I liked best is what Dylan describes sometimes. It's his scanning defensively, his ability to take away lanes. I see it in the MHL too, but it's right that some games he's just all over the place too. And he's not creating anything. He's just taking what's there. And if there's a shooting open, if there's a shooting lane open, he fires on it. If there's a passing lane open, he uses it. But he has pretty good tools. I'm just going to keep mentioning that for those players. But apart from that and his defensive qualities and his ability to hit what's there, I don't see much in Euros game. And there hasn't been any kind of evolution in his game. We're not talking about a Frank Nazar here. He's just been the same player since the start of the year. So I don't really mind dropping him.
He also hasn't been given a chance to develop. We should know.
Yeah, that's true. It's not his fault, but the environment's going to be the same next year for him too, and even worse maybe because of the situation. We were not going to account for that, but I don't mind him being even outside of the top 15, outside of the top 20. I think there's arguments for that too.
I think he's another player that is, he always had that kind of physical advantage in junior, and he like really quickly got put into the KHL. He was there last year, kind of the same role, just show up, be a checking forward, because you are strong enough and you can, forecheck fine, and we can just throw you out there so we can rest our guys. And I mean, that's kind of just what he's been the past 2 years. And then he goes back to the NHL, and it's just, well, he's the most physically dominant player there again. Well, one of. He's kind of like he's just very sturdy. He's not like super. He's not going out hitting people. He holds his own pretty well, and that's kind of just the advantage he always has, and he always uses it. And he can just, and then like David said, he just kind of takes what's given to him, and there's not a lot of him doing kind of the work to make it happen. It just opens up in front of him, and then he attacks on that space.
I feel like he does have some more creativity to his game though too. I've seen him put guys into the blender. I've seen him, work the hands a little bit too, especially from a standstill. As guys come and he can make a couple moves and then distribute the puck. I would agree that his game has looked fairly similar throughout the season, that we haven't seen much of an evolution, but as noted, half of his season has been on the bench. Which is pretty probably a little demoralizing and a little difficult for him too. And then when he goes down to the M, he's clearly such a dominant player down there. And like you said, every time I watch him play, I'm always thinking that he's weighs 205 pounds, because he is so sturdy that guys just can't move him off the puck. But he only weighs like $175. So he is going to add some more strength to that frame too, and that's probably going to help the game. I think our assessment of him is pretty spot on though. Is that he's not a high impact offensive player at the next level. He's going to be someone who can be relied upon, probably going to kill penalties for you, maybe even a top line penalty killer. He's going to be able to hold his own at 5-on-5, probably on the second line, maybe like as a really strong third line player. And again, if you're talking at 12, you pull that player, especially out of this class, you've got yourself a top line energy line guy who can chip in with some offense. And, he has a nice shot. It's pretty heavy. He gets it off quick, and he's pretty accurate as well. So I think he's going to be able to translate into some points. Maybe he's a 40-point guy, 20-20 type of player. I really like his floor. And so I'm not going to bang the table too high. I think at this range, I have him in that 8 to 12 range. So this would be kind of the tail end of it for where I like him. I think that there are some guys, Korchinski, there's some higher end players that if we want to take some risk on, that's totally fine if we want to plug those guys up ahead. And also, I mentioned on the Slack is that we're not really going to put it bake it into our assessment of him. But, I heard from a team side guy, like, don't be surprised if Yurov's there in the 20s. Don't be surprised if he's there on round 2 because of what's going on, that North America's not going to be wanting to hand out work visas to these Russian kids. And that's like highly going to impact their draft stock too. So it's going to be interesting to see how the teams evaluate him as a player versus him as, what his birth certificate says. And we'll probably never know the true answer of, did somebody like him say like, oh, maybe we think he is a top 6 player, but we're not willing to take the risk on him. So we're going to let him sit there till day 2.
There's that thing Russia would hate if they had to keep all their top players.
Oh,
yeah.
darn,
that
they
would
never
upset
wanted
them.
that.
Yeah, no, that would be devastating to them. You know what though? Like, I feel like Yurov, has he done anything to plummet 8 spots? Like if we keep dropping him, obviously not enough to maintain his position, but this is already like a seven spot drop,
In like 4 months though, hasn't it?
Yeah,
it has been a sizable chunk of time. This I will.
In those 4 months, like if you're looking at development, you can look at just for the 2 players that I know the most about, you could Cherkozov versus him, and it's like one player clearly took a giant step, and one has been kind of flatlined since the start of the year. And
we should talk about Ogren.
Jumped.
Ugrin.
Sorry,
Korchinski.
Yeah, or Korchinski.
And,
like let's get someone we want in this spot as opposed to dragging, kicking, and screaming. So it won't be Yurov. What's the argument for Korchinski?
The argument for Korchinski is that he's exceptionally dynamic. Now, does he make the right plays? Sometimes. Is he turnover prone? Hell yeah! But that comes with what he's trying to do. He's a always the best play guy who requires calibration, and sometimes his definition of the best play doesn't actually match reality. But he loves to walk the blue line, all these cutbacks. He accesses all sorts of shooting and passing lanes. Once he gets in deep, he shows playmaking with a little bit of foresight. Like you actually see him like fake one-way cut back, hit a teammate with a backhand pass into the slot. He's quite manipulative, and the potential for him to become better at that is quite high as he improves his stride. Right now, his stride is very weak, to put it nicely, but he's already so developed skill-wise as a skater that it's easy to see skating improvement coming naturally. And as we've seen with plenty of NHL players in the last few years, if you have skating skills, especially as a defenseman, it's going to offset stride concerns just because of your ability, just because the game puts you in positions where you're more in tight. You know, you're trying to deceive back pressure, you're trying to fake out incoming pressure, and the stride isn't necessarily the key part of that. But there are some defensive issues. You project to be at least NHL average going forward, but he's the type of guy who, you know, it'll be a one-on-one and he's like, how can I make the worst possible play? And then he makes it. So you do have to have a little bit of tolerance for risk, but in terms of just dynamic upside, he might be the second best defenseman or the third best defenseman in the draft class in that single ability. You're just looking at a guy who is high volume in every category, fairly high turnover, and lacking a little bit of efficiency.
Well, let's do some Jimmy Hamrin visibility. Let's get him to talk about. Is it Ögren? Did I get that right?
Yeah, Liam Ögren.
Ögren.
It's the dots over the O there in Swedish. Well, yeah, this kid has shown great progression all year. I think he was put in the SHL a bit too early, and then he hasn't got almost any opportunity at all up there. But he's been really producing in junior, and I think he processed the game well. Great puck touch, short puck touches, smart puck touches, a great shot. All over the offensive zone. I think he's very smart. It's not offensively dynamic. He doesn't, run a power play, more like a strong 5-on-5 guy. I think he's smart defensively too. Sometimes he cheats, but most often I think he will do a great forechecking job. He's good in the physical side. He's good at everything. Maybe not, elite skilled in anything. So I think the middle of the first round, I can't compare him to some of the guys you're talking about because I haven't seen those guys enough. But I think I wrote 12 to 18 or something like that in the first round for him. I think that's a good range for that type of player.
I like him a lot. I've got him 17, but I love his shot. I love, like you said, smart puck touches, especially at the junior level, right? Like he's been just buried when he's called up to, well, Lekermäki gets all the fun ice. But no, I like him as a player, but I think you're right. I think he's more of a middle round type guy that maybe his development his speed kind of picks up and he can end up being like a real shooter for someone on their second or third line that could, or even, really develop well. But yeah, his projection right now, I'd say, is once again, we're talking about a middle-six shooter.
We should probably go for upside. We're talking about third liners, middle six guys, Korchinski, and maybe even Gauthier. They maybe have more upside than these guys. Even there's more risk to the projection of Korchinski, and Gauthier has some skating issues. I really like his shooting diet, and he's also a player who is really good at making short touches. So 1-touch passes, 2-touch passes, he can exploit on his line because he doesn't have the puck that much. So he's really good at complementing his line mates and finishing chances in tight. What do we think of Gauthier?
Let's do Korchinski at 12. Cutter Gauthier at 13.
I like him.
Let's see where
and
Joey
I don't think his skating's that bad either. I think his skating's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think his skating is fine.
It's 5, so average.
Yeah. Who gave him a 6? He's got a 6 on the board right now.
That would be Joey.
That'd be Joey. He's got him 6,
man.
and he's got 6.5 on the hockey sense. Obviously, only a 5.5 shot, which is a little surprising too. But the more I've watched him, the more impressed. Right, his shot is really something else. Like I'd probably maybe give him a 5.5 for skating, and then exactly bump him up to 6.5 for the shot. So I didn't watch a ton of his games early in the season, but I've seen several recently, and like every game he's looking really, really strong, really dynamic out there. He's taking nice routes. He's getting into the middle of the ice. He's uncorking. So he's a player that I think could have definite top 6 upside.
Good off puck instincts, gets to the places
Yeah.
it needs to be. Good on retrievals. Really good complementary build. I would be happy with Gauthier at 13. Should we?
And then if Mitch is pounding the table for Geeky, then slide him at 14.
I'll never be seen doing that.
Dang it, Mitch. You guys heard it. We got this on recording. Mitch was banging the table.
Yeah, he actually, there's a hole in his table. He hit it with such
Yeah.
force. Just
Unfortunately, my new desk is
gavel.
breaking. So, I mean, we could be convinced that it was because I was banging the table for Connor Geeky.
well.
Why
Let's.
Geeky over Gauthier? I want to know this. Well, why Geeky over Gauthier?
Explain.
Well, I mean, obviously the skating is worse, but the big difference for me is that Geeky is more of a manipulative, kind of high-end thinker offensively. Gauthier tends to fall into the background a little bit more. You're taking a little bit more mechanical refinement in exchange for a little bit more intelligence. Like it's flip a coin essentially. Y'all know my biases at this point, but I really like. It's not something that is going to make me, I don't know, rip the board up and quit.
Hopefully.
No, that would be a David move.
Oh yeah,
It might happen later on. I have some takes.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine so. Well, you know what? I'm pro Geeky too. I think if we went Geeky 13, Yurov 14, like that would be A-okay in my books. And then we
What
could
about
talk
Cutter?
about Ogren at 15. No pushback? Okay.
well, what are we doing with Cutter?
Oh, I mean, we could do Cutter at 15. Because I don't know about Yurov behind Cutter. I really don't. Like, I think more complete game, can connect plays better. Like, I'd prefer Yurov.
I have Yurov ahead of Cutter.
Yeah.
too.
Okay, so Yurov at 13, Cutter at 14, Geeky at 15.
I thought Geeky was going to be 13. Like,
Well,
it would be
David and Cam both prefer, and both of them have seen these two players a fair bit. I'm okay
Okay.
deferring on this one. It's only
Sure,
one
sure.
spot.
well. Then I think Ogren at 16 is just a layup. Like I don't think
Yeah.
we'd have any challengers to that spot.
Renzo.
David, keep your mouth shut. I'm going to mute you. But Calio Delius.
I don't mind it.
Like he looks exceptional. Like even at the SHL level, his defending is so good. Can move the puck through layers. Like he's just his skating. I think Jimmy has him at what, like a 7.5. Like he has a lot of tools. He has a lot of sense. He's pushing the boundaries of his game. Like I
Nemetz.
really.
He's Simon Nemetz,
But Swedish.
Yeah, and a bit less good. That's my evaluation.
Yeah, he
And
doesn't have the
a
booming
super
point
great
shot.
system.
Do you know what I mean? Like Nemetz has that separating skill, but O'Dellies can move the puck better, I think. Like he
I really don't mind
challenges-
I really don't mind Odelius between like 15 and 50. It really, you can make arguments for him based on tools again and how he's going to develop and his confidence. I don't think he's all that creative right now, even if he makes a ton of plays. I think they're
on
pretty
the
easy for
breakout.
him.
He's so creative.
Yeah, but the game is really easy for him with who he plays with, I think. I'm not an expert on this. You should let Jimmy talk.
We should.
about
We
this.
should. Well, Jimmy's just talked so much throughout this whole meeting.
Yeah.
I want somebody else to talk. Really, like, haven't we had enough, Jimmy? No, I'm kidding, buddy. You get in there.
I really like Adelius too. I think the thing I really like, his tools are great, especially the skating. And the thing I like about it, he uses the skating in a smart way, and he doesn't try to play a game that he hasn't the skill for. He plays, as you said, really strong defensively. He's really plays a good gap. He's strong. He's just a good, mobile defensive defenseman, and those are really good to have. So I really like that. I also agree with David there on the creative side. I don't think he has elite creativity in any sense. I think he will be I think it will be more leaning towards a defensive defenseman rather than a offensive defenseman. But sure, he's a two-way defenseman with that mobility, and he will, have great breakouts and stuff like that. But in the offensive zone, I don't think he is that creative. So, but with that said, I think those tools would translate well, and the floor is really high on Odelius. So he is. I think he should be around the 20 spot in the first round. I think he's that good.
I'm just surprised David had time for that. I was ready for him to just shoot that take right down. So that he belongs in the third round or something,
Seventh.
The seventh round, sure. I mean, who else would we have in this spot? I think Mitch, you said Sam Renzel. My last Renzel viewing.
Was it his first game back in the USHL?
It probably was. Yeah, it was with Waterloo.
Yeah. Well, he's only played 4 USHL games. It's kind of, I don't know how to weight them, right?
Now.
5. All right. Yeah. The first 3 were insane. And it's like, hey, how do we weight that? And now he's coming back after season playing high school. It's like, well, how do we weight that? It's just such a tricky one, especially because Waterloo is, well, you don't need to know more of my thoughts on the USHL, but yeah.
It's Waterloo.
I also feel bad because it feels like we're kicking Dylan's child repeatedly. Even though I think he's like an early second at best.
Hey, Lassi has him around 22. So
all right. He has some support.
And I like Gleb around 20 as well. Just to be honest.
I want to bring up another player.
Who?
Lekirimaki. Did I get that right?
You really do.
I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan.
Like, no. You throwing out Lekirimaki is all the proof we need that you are fully on board with like tools ahead of sense. Because Lekirimaki has no sense. Like, I keep watching Lekirimaki and I'm just like, off puck instincts? Nope. Can he connect a play? Nope. Can you do the give and go game? Nope. He's just really toolsy. And
he's very good at what he does. I think he has better off puck sense than you give him credit for, because he's really good at that in the SHL, especially when the plays are more predictable. I want to talk about this because it's the same thing with Lambert. I used to undervalue his off puck instincts because he plays in a very chaotic environment. It's hard to predict plays, to be at the right time, but when at the right time at the right time at the right place. But when he plays in the SHL, you see him slow down, attack puck at space at the right time. He connects plays better. He has no physical game. He can't play on the boards at all. And he's very good at what he does. But what he does is like corridor. It's very limited. But he's very, very good at this thing. So what do you think, Jimmy? Is it too early for him? Is it the right spot?
Yeah, I think it's the right spot. I agree with everything everyone is saying. I don't like him either, but I think it's the right spot because he is so. His shot is. I think he's a better shot even than Alexander Holtz had. I think I'm so impressed to see when he shoots.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah,
I like his shot, but that's bold.
Yeah, that is something else.
But I've watched Holtz a lot. I watched Lekirimaki a lot, and this guy can really pick the corner. And just as David said, he's really good at what he is good at. And the things that has me thinking he's better now than I thought, maybe a couple of months ago. I think his motor is really good too. He's always on the move now and tries to get involved in the play. But, his game is about shooting. And I saw one of his last games now, and he just tries to find his ways, and that was in the SHL. But, he was one of the most dangerous players in that Djurgården team in SHL, but he didn't use his teammates, so he just went for the shot all the time. But I mean,
is he elite Tolvanen?
Yeah, maybe.
You said
but I think there's something there, and I think he can be like a power play specialist in the NHL maybe in the future. So I think this is the right spot for him. He is, and I mean the way. It's really impressive to produce in one of the worst teams in the SHL too. So I like what he's good at, and especially his shot. I think he is tremendous and a great puck touches and a great shot.
Who are the candidates for 17th spot.
All of a sudden, I like Trikozov in this spot. You know, like
have we talked about Mashar?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we should bring him up.
He's all on
like
the perimeter.
Mashar.
Like the next time he gets inside will be the first this season.
No way. No way.
He does not play inside. Like maybe it's a sampling issue, but it's all perimeter play. All perimeter play.
He was pretty good at World Junior Championship.
Touches, a lot of inefficient touches, complicates things needlessly. I don't know. I'm not super high on Meshar, but Cam, you are, so I'll let you.
I mean, I'm not super high on him.
Well, no,
I like
sorry,
him
not
in
super
this
high,
range, right? Yeah.
Relative
I think
to my
he's definitely in this range. I think he's another one of these guys that, you know, granted, he is not going to force his way into the inside. He's not Frank Nazar. He's not playing like that. But give him an inch in that direction and he'll take it and he'll get in there. I like his hands. I like his wheels. I like his transitional play. I think he carries the puck really well. Like his zone, his zone entries are strong, you know, with control. I think he takes good routes on the forecheck too. Despite being a smaller guy, he can get in there and disrupt. He's another one who has really soft hands. He can play. He can make some nice plays down low. You know, the low to high dish. He can find some soft areas in the ice. He was good at the World Juniors. He's been good in a real tertiary role in the pro leagues. I think he's one of these kids that could. It's things are going to have to work right for him. He's going to have to make sure that he's rock solid defensively, because some coaches are probably going to look at his size and the way he plays the game and be like, you know, you better be putting up a ton of points or I'm going to staple him to the bench, sort of thing. But I think that there's an upside to him that could be like a Nick Ehlers light type of player. Like he doesn't have that dynamic offense to go along with it, but the way he transitions the puck and carries it and can, you know, serpentine through the neutral zone and really pick up speed and judge awareness and change his gears. I think that he's right in that, like, I'm looking at my board right now. Like I've got ahead of Lekermäki. Now I also wasn't giving him credit for having a shot that's better now it's Holtz. But you know, like right in that range, right? Like Mashar, Ogren, Geeky, Lekermäki. You know, I've got Owen Pickering in that same zone too, but you know, you guys will probably beat me down for that. But yeah, I like Mashar. I think that he's another one that could be quite easily end up as a really nice second line winger who can play on your power play, dry play offensively at 5-on-5.
Yeah,
high skill.
I have Mashar ahead of Lekermäki too.
Okay, we could do that. We could go Mashar, Lekermäki. And out of respect to the lad Dylan, who just left, of course, we could do Trikozov at 19. And
Sam Rinzel,
Owen Pickering.
You know, it's a shame.
Owen Beck.
Yeah, Owen Beck. You know,
this is where I wanted to have Miroshnichenko before.
Yeah. It's fair too.
That diagnosis. Obviously, we wish him the best. You know, very unfortunate situation. And, you know, I don't know how we reflect that. That one is tricky.
We shouldn't. We should just treat it as if he didn't have that, I think.
Then we'd have him in this range.
But he
right?
does.
But he does.
Yeah, but
at the very least, he's going to miss a chunk of development time. So we could treat it as if it was a non-reoccurring injury that's going to take him out for potentially a year or longer. There's nothing really like that. You know, if it's a concussion or if it's a knee, you could be like, oh no, now he has a bad concussion history, or oh no, now he has a bad knee. And that would weigh him further down the list. But it's like, it's almost like he's got mono and you know, and he's going to miss a bunch of time because of that or something, right? It's one of these weird ones that will impact his development. I don't think that there's any way that it won't. Doesn't mean he can't make that up as years go by.
It could mean too that instead of moving him up 10 spots, like we hold the line on where he was last board.
Yeah.
And that is still a reflection of our improving esteem of that player, given the kind of periphery circumstances. That's something we could do. So what would be the case for Rinzel? Let's talk about who does belong in this spot. And I think it would be Rinzel.
Daniel here.
Daniel, yeah. I know.
Well, thankfully, he left a very extensive report that I can read off of.
I mean, all his reports are extensive. They're
really? He's usually like one word guy.
Yeah. No. Little novellas, each one.
Yeah.
Well, you go
so-
for it, Mitch.
The argument for Sam Renzel is that he's a big Scott Morrow, essentially, just like super manipulative, like a bit on the lower pace side, but you can see that once forwards get on him, he picks up the pace, he moves, highly deceptive, very good at making the F1 move out of his way, like Jedi mind trick kind of stuff, and just like sends them flying in the boards, and he looks back at them and laughs, and then continues moving up the ice.
A film reference from Mitch?
He
Yeah,
can do
that's
it.
fair.
The only movie I've ever seen is Star Wars Episode 4. I don't know anything else. Anyway,
Sure.
so
Keep going. Sorry, I had to revel in that moment.
so he can do it from the point as well, which is kind of where the Scott Morrow comparison comes from. That he'll step to the inside, wait till the guy angles, pull him down the boards, do it the opposite way. And he's a very, very strong creative playmaker. And this is the big thing that separates him from Pickering in my eyes, is that he's always looking for the high value pass. He's very aggressive. He has the skills and the mind to access lanes and open them, create opportunities. So you're getting like a pretty diverse player, just a little bit rough on the skating side, a little bit rough on the defensive end, but I don't think it's significantly below NHL average to the point where it's going to prevent him from playing. And then the natural comparison, again, Pickering is a little bit more agile, a little bit of a better skater. You expect him to have a little bit more runway because he's like 170 pounds, 6'5". But he doesn't have the same offensive vision. He doesn't have the same sort of foresight or creativity to his game. In many ways, what Pickering runs into is that he's just trying stuff without seemingly fully grasping why he's doing it, and then it blows up spectacularly, or it works and it looks really cool. And Pickering does have a lot of work to do on the defensive end. Flip side, how much of it is his situation? So Swift Current, very active, very forward-thinking team, but they're young. They're not particularly good. And so we do expect some degree of we do expect Pickering's game to really take off next year, where Renzel's might be more of just a continued steady progression.
Yeah, Pickering's maybe his most dynamic attribute is those retrievals, right? Like he's pretty good retrieving the puck and escaping pressure. And like you said, Mitch, like he's so skinny right now. Like he's going to play, you got to imagine, like 35 plus pounds heavier when he's in the pros. Like that's going to change his defensive game in a big way, especially in zone. He's one of these guys that I think could have a huge ceiling, which is reflective of where I have him on the board. And hey, fun fact, did we know that him and Matejchuk were cousins? Do you guys know that?
Say what?
It's a good time. Yeah,
Wow,
they're cousins,
okay.
and they played together. They
Go
played
off,
together
King.
all growing up. And so I knew they played together, like in Bantam or U18 or whatever, before going to the Dub. And so I was asking him, Owen, about that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're cousins." And I was like, "What?" And then, so they're buddies, and they're always jawing at each other, and they got a little battle to see who's going to get picked first year. And so it's I thought that was a nice little tidbit. I didn't know.
Spoiler alert: Owen Pickering.
You think he's going early, first?
Yeah. There is. We'll see how exactly it shakes down, but there are teams that are like top 10 Owen Pickering, like pretty locked into that right now.
I could
He's a smart.
But-
He's a smart kid though. Talking with him there, like he's really aware of his deficiencies and his pluses in his games, and like the focus is on obviously improving those deficiencies. After having that chat with him, we were chatting for maybe 45 minutes or something like that. Like I came away even more impressed. He seemed like you were talking to an adult, not a 17-year-old kid. Like he was very mature in his understanding of the game and the processes there, and how he can take those next steps. It was good.
So do we do
have it
Renzel
back-to-back?
or Pickering or Owen Beck? Because I just saw your board, Lauren, and this is the range that you have him in.
This is the range, but I think I would have both Renzel and Pickering ahead of Beck at this point.
Okay. So do we go Renzel Pickering or Pickering Renzel?
Well, I'd be curious Cam, what do you think what's your argument for Pickering over Renzel?
So I think Renzel I think Pickering's the better skater. I think that size is going to come along. He's going to pack on more pounds. I think he's going to get better defensively with everything. I honestly think that they're very similar projections long term. like you mentioned, is that right now Renzel, especially at the high school level, but even stepping up in the USHL, like his game came with him as he moved up, and he was showing all that great offensive stuff. So at the end of the day, Pickering might end up being a better defensive player, even if he's not that strong a defensive player right now, where Renzel will probably maybe end up as a higher offensively inclined player. So, 6 of this, half a dozen of the other. So I right now I'm leaning towards Pickering. I've watched more of him, and that inevitably kind of weighs into my decision making on it. But I like them both in this range. I'm with Lauren, where I think I like Beck too. I haven't watched as much of him, but I think he's probably a little lower ceiling. Both those D-men, though, I think big, sturdy guys that can end up playing top 4 minutes for you long term. Like that's going to be an impactful player versus whereas Beck going to be a 3C, which is great. You want a 3C and a homegrown one too, but I think we probably going to evaluate a top 4 defender higher.
All right, I think I have flipped, and I am now Pickering over Renzo.
That's my guy.
Let's do it.
Go.
There is partly a bit of a knowledge gap here because I've seen Pickering. I've lost count of how many times I've seen him this year. Whereas
Right.
Renzel, I've seen him like 5-6 times. So there's a huge knowledge gap there, but it's okay that the ranking can reflect that.
And we have Owen Beck then at 22. I feel like that's just a gimme at this point.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
mean,
I
you're
mean?
looking at
Yeah.
a 3C, and also has the tools to become a little bit more like
His
the-
floor is
Yeah.
so much higher than anyone else in the OHL, aside from maybe Shane Wright, as far as forwards go. Like, it's just, I was at a point where I was like, there's no way he's this good. There's no way he's this consistently solid and doing all the right things every single game. I must be doing something wrong. And so I've increased my Mississauga viewings, and I think I have maybe 15 or so now. And I have maybe one where I was like, okay, he had a so-so game. Like, it wasn't even bad. And now it's just at a point where, the rest of the OHL is starting to catch up. But as far as, consistency throughout from the start of the season to now, where he's just maintained his game and kept building on it. And the only thing right now that's holding him back is the offense. And it's so upsetting because he's got chances. It's not like he's not, generating anything. He's getting robbed like 4 or 5 times a night. And it is, I don't know if it's weighing on him or not because he just keeps firing the puck at the net. But, it's just, I wonder what that, how that's affected, how his offense has been affected by the deployment. A lot of third line minutes, a lot of defensive zone starts, a lot of, penalty killing and that sort of thing. Whereas I think maybe Mississauga relies on other players to generate offense for them, and they are always making back take faceoffs in the defensive zone. And he's really only out there trying to generate offense when the team is down by a goal. So I think a big issue with the offense right now is deployment. And I don't know, if I'm confident in a 2C sort of projection at the moment, but for sure 3C, maybe even, second line wing. But I think he's a center at the NHL at the NHL level for sure. It's just, where he can build his offense from, because a lot of his, habits, they aren't quite as developed as maybe you would like to see at this point, but obviously he didn't play last season. So, he's still, relying too much on Deeks. He goes wide into the offensive zone, not really a lot of shots from the outside, but when he doesn't have the puck, he's, driving the net, he's working in those tight spaces, he's feeding off his line mates well. So, there is potential there for him to grow his offensive game. But I think right now at this point, there's just a little bit too many question marks for me to be confident in a 2C projection. But I think, his defensive game is just remarkable. I mean, he is playing defense most shifts, covering for his defenseman. So I don't know how you cannot like him as a player.
Yeah, so we could do Pickering, Renzel, Odelius, then Beck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, works for me.
What do we think of Paravalov too? He's impressed me. I wish Dylan was still here.
I've
liked him
bullied by David.
I know. I feel like that was the case. Have you guys seen him much?
Dylan has Paravalov at 35 to 45. But he does have Vladimir Grudinin in this range. And you know what? I think the NHL would hate us for it. Would make a ton of fun of us for it. But when Dylan's right, he's right. Grudinin is awesome. I see some Sam Girard in his game. I really do. Can move the puck, good play stopping ability, even if he's short. Sturdy, reliable defensively. Like I see some good offensive instincts with the offensive blue line activations. Deceptive as a distributor. Cam, have you seen a lot of Grudinin?
Not a lot, but what I have seen, I see him more of like a mid-second round guy myself, or even a third rounder sort of thing. But Dylan watched a ton more tape, so I'll give him the nod on that side. But obviously saw him at the World Juniors. I've seen him, playing in the MHL a little bit. Haven't seen him in the V or the K.
I thought he was Russia's best defenseman at the World Juniors. And if you look at his production too, like this really caught me off guard, was like he's producing in the VHL. He's got a point in the KHL. And he's playing in the KHL with CSKA Moskva as an 18-year-old. Like the statistical profile is really strong. But we could have him at the low end of Dylan's range instead of like the high end, which would be closer to 25.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have Miro over him?
Miro is a question mark. Yeah, he's got 3 points in 12 VHL games. Like that's really good for an 18-year-old defenseman.
Yeah, I'd like to see him, and I should check out his V tape, because that's usually pretty more telling than watching him play in the K, even if he's getting minutes. But it's hard to really assess those 18-year-olds, especially on the back end in the K.
Well, let's look at his minutes. He got 635, 426, and 2 zeros. So to your point.
So yeah, I think I'll stick to the V. Yeah.
Well, he had one game at 1556, and he picked up an assist.
Bunch of guys,
but you know what?
COVID or something.
Yeah, probably. So like we can put a pin in this one, but maybe at 25, maybe at 26, it's something we talk about. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Who do we want at 24 then?
I have a couple names. Jimmy Snuggerud and Danny Zilkin.
Yeah, I love it. Snuggerud.
Jimmy Snuggerud, for sure.
Yeah,
I like it too.
Snuggerud,
Marco Casper,
Hive,
we should talk about.
Violence, yep.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for Casper. This will surprise no one.
I think we all do. I remember at the World Juniors when he was running around, people were just like, Marco Casper.
Yeah. It's funny because you watch him and it's like, I don't know if he's going to produce a lot in the NHL, but he's going to make me happy in the NHL. Once
and in this draft, that counts for a lot.
Yeah. It really does. He is team serotonin boost. So do we put Casper at 24? And Jimmy, you've seen a ton of him this season, I would have to imagine. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like him too. He's when he plays in junior, he most often plays center. I like him more as a wing, being that aggressive forechecking player, and he got some nice hands, but the hockey sense is kind of limited.
Yep.
So, well, I think this range is good for him. I will also a guy that's I don't see him as high ranked as I have is Matthias Havelid. I think he is a player too. I think he projects well for me in this range too. Many people have him maybe in the second round, but I like him a lot. But I'm fine with Casper. I think great skater is Casper. I think he's, as you said, aggressive, and he has some smarts to his game, and he compete well in the SHL as well. So he's a good late first round pick.
Cam, you really liked Havelid recently, right?
I mean, I don't know what to make of him, because like sometimes I watch him and I'm like, damn, this guy should be like in the teens, and other times I watch him like, I don't know if this guy's a top 100 pick. Like, so he's a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde whenever I'm checking in anyways. I've talked to some guys, I talked to some team side guys, and like I was talking to one guy like last week. I'm like, what do you think of Havelid? Like off the record. And he's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of this guy. And it's the same way I felt too. I'm like, it's just really hard to get a read on him. I saw a clip here this morning that he just launched a rocket one time or top, cheddar there. And so he definitely has like a lot of elements to his game that I'm like, whew. And then some other ones where I'm like, what are you thinking out there? Who the guy I like who's not a Swede, but he's playing there is Bixel, Liam Bixel. I think that he's another one that we could be talking about in this range. Like, that guy is mean, and he's big, and he's got a good stick, and like he's not going to put up a ton of points, but like he's going to play minutes, and like he's like, if we want to talk about big guys who are going to get their name called early, like he's 6'5" and looks like he's still growing, and like, man, he's mean. Like he steps up into the open ice and just drills guys in the SHL level. Like he's a player that another serotonin booster for sure.
Well,
I
he
like
also
his
skates
activation,
like
too.
he's 6'6" too. Like he's, I don't know. I watch Pixel sometimes, and it's just like Bambi on ice, just falling in every which direction. But I feel like Snuggerud would be
Got a
having.
long stride.
This is true. This is true, and
Yeah.
and he's probably figuring out how to move in that frame. But like, what would be? Sorry, what I think would be the compelling case for Snuggerud is one of upside. Mitch, David, I'm sure you've got a lot of thoughts on Snuggerud. So,
Yes, he's normally a third line projection, and then once or twice every game, he's a top 6 guy out of nowhere. The skill flashes that he have are nuts. Like, we're not just talking like, oh, cool little backhand pass. It's fake one way, wait for the defender to turn his feet, go backhand and pass like under his stick or through his legs to a teammate on the other side of the slot. Very creative, adaptable rush patterns, and then he just spends the entire game very poorly striding up and down the boards. Weird player, but it's easy to see the puck protection, the kind of ability to bring the puck to the middle, and of course the high-end flashes of skill translate into the NHL. And of course he can rip it too. Like I've generally seen more as a passer. He loves this early entry pass. He'll come in, put the puck on his backhand, wait for the defender to turn, and then throw it into the slot. But he can rip it too. And we're starting to see him take more and more shots, and he's getting more comfortable working into those areas. Personally, I like him a little bit better than Beck. I think it's pretty much the same projection though, so I'm not fussed either way.
and this would be right after Beck too, right? Like it would be
Yeah,
the
it's
very
not a
next
problem.
spot. So, like I think we should do Snuggerud in that spot, and then it's between Casper and Bixel, I think.
Does Casper do anything else than hit though? You guys talk a lot about
He's
his
good at the net
physicality,
front.
Yeah, he's got good hands in tight.
Yeah.
but is that
But
enough to be a first rounder?
I think Bixel has higher value.
Yeah, so I like Bixel a fair bit more. Like I like the activation. I actually like his puck skills and upside. It requires a lot of imagination, even more so than Pickering. And Pickering is the projection you have if you have an active imagination. But he's good. Like I think there's a fair bit of upside here. Is he going to get a ton of points? No. Could he be a guy who facilitates a fair bit in the NHL? He activates at the right times, holds the blue line, moves the puck out to his teammates, steps into space before shooting. Yeah, sure.
And steps into guys in open ice.
Yeah, he's and he'll also end some people.
Yeah.
It's kind of dirty too, I think.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
He has moments.
But he
He's
plays a
mean.
lot on his instincts all the time, I think, and that is really good when he's that big. So he's a really big force, even in the SHL. So I think a little bit about the Russian defenseman. What's his name? Sedorov. This big train that can come, and maybe not as smart all the time, but I think his skating is good. I think the balance, maybe strength thing, he will get better balance when he gets better strength. And I think he's such a raw player coming into Sweden. He hasn't refined his game in any way, so he just plays on instincts all the time. But that size, and you don't miss him when he's on the ice. So he's a player to like. For me, in this range, I have Havelid slightly ahead of Casper and Bixel, but they're pretty close, all three for me. Havelid, I think, is the decision making I really like. I think he has offensive upside, but he doesn't always show it. He plays a bit too safe. Maybe that's what makes scouts really don't know what he is, but when he play offense, I think he plays good, and he has great hands. And but I really like the decision making, and the awareness of risks all the time, and maybe too much awareness at risk. I would like him to take more risks, but Havlit for me is I really believe in that player. So for me, I would want him also in the conversation with Casper and Bixel.
Well, we could do Bixel, Havelid, then Casper.
Yeah, sure.
That would be a little SHL run.
I hear you guys talk about these players, but I'm not really excited about them. I haven't seen them, but big physical hits, I don't think it belongs around this range. There are no other players.
You'd like
Pixel.
Pixel. I can assure you of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Big
I mean,
Sol
right.
has a lot more to him.
He's good with the puck as well. It's not,
Yeah,
an
he can move it.
offensive defense, but he moved the puck. He can take it back. He scans the ice. I think he does good things. But the things that stand out is his size and his mean streak. He doesn't care if he plays veterans in the SHL. He just run them over.
He is suffocating too. Like, he takes up so much ice defensively. Makes it really hard for opponents to work. Casper has small area skill, good at the net front. Like, there's some value there too. We could also talk about having Gruden in at 28. That's 3 spots lower than where Dylan had him.
There are a few OHLers too that I think deserves to be in this conversation.
Ludwinski.
Yeah, I've got like 5 of them in this range.
Yeah.
Really?
It's ridiculous.
But that's funny
There's so
because
many
5
good
takes
OHLers
us
here.
right to the end of the first round too.
We
Run-
have 10
just
more
run it off.
OHLers.
Like, okay, so I think I have David Goyette and Hunter Haight at the top end of this range before I have Zhilkin. I think Zhilkin's more of a tweener.
Mhm.
You got Ludwinski ahead of Zilkin, eh?
Yeah, Ludwinski
Mhm.
too. I think I'm more confident in his skating ability, helping him translate better. Zhilkin's skating is kind of a mess. He moves around well enough. He keeps up with OHL pace. I'm concerned about how that's going to translate to a faster NHL, because right now it's just the acceleration is non-existent. I mean, it takes him like 6 or 7 strides to get up to a top speed that's not even that fast. And so he's making, good defensive plays. He's stripping players of the puck, but then he can't do anything with it afterwards because, players will catch up to him. And that's the same situation with, someone like Bryce McConnell-Barker or Luca Delbo-Baluz, where it's like a lot of these players, who have high offensive upside are just plagued with skating issues. And it's just, right now, I think because Ludwinski's skating is not as bad is why I have him a little bit higher, because they all kind of play similar styles of game. But Goyette and Haight I have a lot higher than the rest of them. I would have them first. I think you can't ignore what Goyette's doing with OHL rookie scoring right now. He's producing in every game. He's got that, elite playmaking. He plays well with line mates. He's starting to score lately, which is something that I didn't think was in his arsenal. He's got a pretty good shot. Gets himself to the front of the net when he doesn't have the puck. He's on one of the best all rookie lines in the OHL right now. But and then of course with Haight, hot and cold, lots of invisible and then big flashes of play, and he's starting to turn a corner as of maybe like a month ago. It's just he's become like a different player where it's like it's dominance, it's getting in on the forecheck or winning puck battles, getting shots off, creating off the rush. It's become a completely different player than the player that I saw at the beginning of the season. So I think that kind of improvement I think should be considered in this range.
I agree with most of your take, but I really don't like Goyette.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I see the skill, but he has no idea what to do with it. He just dangles the defender and he can't do it. And he has some nice flashes, but it's a bit like the same as Casey, that he's going to be in this range a bit later. He has a skill, doesn't really know what to do with it exactly, and there are flashes because sometimes it works out, but after he dangles the defender, doesn't really know what to do next. And the skill is not that high. It's not high enough. It's not elite enough for me to consider him in that spot because the hockey sense I feel is pretty much lacking. I like Zilkin, Poitras even, and another player that I forget better than him.
My biggest issue with Goyette is, funny enough, his passing. So I just don't think it's a good enough dimension to make him a top 9 guy in the NHL at this stage. I don't think he's deceptive. I don't think he opens lanes. I don't think he even has the ability to really prolong them. I kind of have a different take than David in the sense that I do think he's intelligent. I think he sees openings, and I just think his game is very basic. It's just get puck, move it, sometimes in a flashy way, but usually in a way that won't scale up well to the NHL considering his mechanical limitations. That's not to say that he's a bad player. He's very good and he's only going to get better. And the start of his season was unreal. Like the start of his season, he was creating lanes. He's lost that ability over the course of the year for reasons that I'm not entirely sure of. Maybe that's because he's been focusing more on being a shooter and finding space to get open, but he just strikes me as a guy who's going to be good junior scorer. Like Peter Reynolds, right? This is the player that I always go back to. Peter Reynolds didn't get drafted last year. Peter Reynolds isn't scoring. And Peter Reynolds was by the way that we establish playmaking ability. So like, can you access lanes? Okay, cool. Or can you spot lanes? Cool. Can you access lanes? Can you prolong lanes? Can you create lanes? And on that pyramid, Reynolds scored, in my opinion, higher than Goyette. Of course, there are a few differences. One of them plays in Sudbury and one of them plays in a place that shall not be named, which is hell for development. But yeah, it's just a tough one. And with Hunter Haight, crazy shot, crazy hands, inside play, the skating, right? I think given everything else in his game, he's going to figure out the skating. I have a little bit more faith in Hunter Haight than I do Goyette at this stage. But Zilkin, to me, is the next best tool guy. And unfortunately, I also have Patra ahead of Goyette, which I know is going to greatly convolute our OHL thing.
I can come down on Goyette for sure. Zilkin, I really like Zilkin. I just think the execution is not there. And he is an older player in this draft class. I'm definitely here for Zilkin in the first round. I had him in the first round at the beginning of the year. But I think I've been having like the up and the down and the up and the down viewings with every single player. So it's just impossible to come to any sort of like confident determination, which is why my ranges are like this wide.
Yeah. I just think ultimately, like when we're looking at, puck handling, shooting, passing, how they, not necessarily their ability to complete plays, but the plays that they identify. I think Zilkin is probably the best of the OHLers that we have. But it's so weird, right? Because I'm going to watch another game of Danny Zilkin and he's going to do nothing. And I'm going to be like, what the hell, Nick? So like, the OHL is so tricky this year.
That's why I have like 8 or 9 viewings of every single player, because I can't figure out what these guys are after like 3 or 4 games. You need like triple the amount of viewings just to come to some sort of understanding of what their game could possibly be.
The only one is Gelsman, right? Gelsman is the only guy who, like, you watch, you're like, okay, I know what this is. I know what this is going to be.
I think Zilkin is probably one of the fastest processor in the entire draft. Like I'd give him top 5, top 10. The way he identifies teammates and link plays together, sometimes I really do agree with Lauren that he has the execution issues, and the skating, I don't think it's that great either. He does, the back check does catch up to him, and his rushing game is going to be limited in the professional game, in the AHL, NHL, but he just sees plays so fast, like right fast, I think, in some instances, that I really believe in him. What do we do with this?
I just want to point out
I don't know.
that,
and the other thing is, like, I haven't even got to Christian Kyrou, and it's like,
right, okay,
and Isaiah George, and it's like, well, these guys.
Ty Nelson, we haven't brought in Ty Nelson up yet either. Yeah. Like, what the hell?
Another player we haven't brought up yet that we probably should, and I think this is because we've talked about him so much in Slack. I just, we got David to admit he was wrong, so that's a huge win, and that was on Seamus Casey. We had him at 12.
He's going to fall.
Well, yeah, he's fallen like 15 spots.
I mean, more than that.
You know what? Like, I'm on board with that, but at some point we have to address that Casey, who was like our 3rd, 4th, 5th defenseman, is now going to be like 30 maybe.
Yeah, it should be. We shouldn't wait too long to put him down. But
like, I think this is his range.
I just saw an amazing Casey game.
Sorry, what was that?
Really? So now you're gonna come back.
I just saw an amazing Casey game, like a game where if I were to throw out all of my previous viewings, I would rank him probably as high as 30th.
Okay.
Because he's still not that good.
That took a whole spin. I was expecting you to be like, I would rank him 10, Yeah. The way you framed that had me expecting one thing.
Even when he does cool things, they're still not very good, which is the issue. People see, oh, I'm going to manipulate a guy, and then he like passes it to a teammate who's in worse position than himself. from the point. He's just like throwing like bad passes into the slot without any foresight. He has like one play like every 5 games when like he does that little opposite side spin when he spins around his inside leg and like drives it inside and takes a shot, and there's a teammate like point blank for a chance that he could just pass to. The defense is like, I'm kind of all over the place. On some games, it's like, oh yeah, this man, like he's instinctual play killer. At other times, it's like Seamus Casey does not care. You know,
I don't know. I feel like he's pretty consistently good defensively. Like his instincts, his off puck reads, like he's very proactive. Like he arrives as the puck does. You know, like
he falls
I see
for
a
the
lot
same
of defensive
trick multiple times in the same game. I don't know. Like I think the handling skill, the retrievals are like major pluses for me.
Yeah.
His handling skill isn't going to translate perfectly to the NHL because it's more like, ooh, inside edges, fake you out on my inside edges. You know, NHL defenders are just like, well, I'm just going to hit you because you're on the train tracks and you can't move, which is the Lane Hudson issue as well. But in the context
but he's a lot
Casey,
more inventive.
Exactly.
Inventive, and better play selection too.
And he's very good at taking the puck off the boards. Now, making the right play, not so much, but just getting the puck off the boards is huge in today's NHL. Like, literally look at Matthew Knies. Matthew Knies gets pucks off the boards creatively and then instantly loses it, and then his team scores. Because if you're a Bull and you can do that kind of stuff, it's going to work, and it's going to scale well to the NHL. So, you know, Casey's a land of contrasts. 30th. Fine. I don't know what else to say.
Okay, I'm cool with 30, but that leaves us.
Let's just shove all the OHL players in there. I don't care what ranking. They're gonna flip flop back and forth for the next like 3 months, anyways.
And you know what? Like I like the Gruden and direct comp to Casey too. Like I think that serves this purpose well. Like I think that's ultimately a good way for this to play out. So let's do it, especially because if we look at Joey's ranking, we have to have Casey down before we can have Hudson down, before we can have Ingram down. And I don't want Ingram in the 80s. Shut up, Mitch. Well, I know how you feel about Ingram's game. So, you know, I think we have to at some point put names down, and I think this is the spot. So what order do we do the OHLers then?
Let's go Jilkin. Let's go Jilkin because David and Mitch really pump his tires, and I really like Jilkin too. So I'll go Jilkin. I like hate afterwards. I don't know.
Yeah,
and then
Casey.
Okay.
Sure.
No. But we should put down almost all of the OHLers in that Lauren name before Casey. I have them like this on my board. There's like a bunch of OHLers, and then there's Casey. So it has to be this way.
I would go Jilkin, hate Ludwinski, and then more players. Goyette, McConnell, Barker, and then I don't know what to do with Kyrou or Poitras or.
That's a tricky one.
What
it's kind of almost the same thing, just kind of flipped, you know, positionally. You know, it's retrievals that we're looking at, but instead of handling skill, it's passing. Some dumb play, some genius ones, some amazing defensive moments. I.e., Poitras is insane on the forecheck, but the back check is like uncharted territory for him.
I have not had a good viewing of Poitras in months, and I'm getting concerned. Like I watched, I think 3 games this week.
He's like best forechecker in the OHL, worst back checker. It's so weird.
And I actually saw him put effort in this time, and he was still the last one back into the zone. And he was the furthest one out of the offensive zone to start. And it was just, I don't know
think
what's
that
going
matters
on
though, because it's going to be, for sure. Like those kind of things, they all improve at it.
The thing is, like he and Jilkin play with Sasha Pastajov, so they're always in the offensive zone. It's just,
that's a problem. So do we go Poitras, then Casey?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, we got to keep Casey in the first.
I like Ludwinski before Poitras.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's fine with me. That's fine with me. It's almost the same
tools.
Thing, right? Except Ludwinski works a little bit harder, and he's crazy on the boards. Ludwinski on the boards is amazing to watch. I'd like to show him tape to all the kids who are, you know, trying to take their game to the next level.
And you know what, I think like we do Casey at 32. We got to respect Dylan's work, and it's not like he doesn't have a second voice on the Gruden file. If we have to take an L on that one, it's on me. It's recorded, but I'm vouching for Gruden. Ostland, God, I haven't had a good viewing on Ostland all season. Like Hlinka, J20, SHL. It's just like I don't know what his identity is. And insofar as I do know his identity, I don't think it scales up particularly well. But we did have Östlund in the first last time, did we not? So yeah, we did. So Jimmy, why don't you talk a bit about Östlund, since he is dropping a fair margin?
My assessment of him is the same as it was then. I think he is a very smart center. He has great puck support. He works really hard all over the ice. He's a great motor, but his skating is his creativity quite well. He thinks the game fast, but he doesn't really have a shot or the great hands. So it's a lot of warning flags. But it's a player that you notice every time he plays. He makes his teammates better. He makes his team better when he plays. So he competes well too. So I think he can. Skating, I think, will be the toughest thing for him. With that size and that skating to translate well. But I think there's something there, and he's a guy to keep an eye on, but he'll need a couple of years of development before stepping over, I think. But he's a very interesting player. So I always kind of like him when I see him play. But to look to translate that game to the NHL, I think could be hard.
But I don't remember for which player Mitch said this, but every time he plays, I want to shake his hands like he's doing a good job.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure he's going to translate that kind of a game to the NHL because he's just too bland. There's a lack of skill. He supports play super well, and I think he has defensive upside. But if he plays, it's going to be a bottom six forward who doesn't score too much because he has no shot. And he's a playmaker in the sense that he can create plays on the periphery of the zone, but I don't think he ever managed to really bring dangerous pucks inside unless there's a really clear play for him to make. So, yeah. I'd like to have a Nathan Gaucher in this spot. I think it's right for him.
Oh wow! The QMJHL makes an entrance.
It finally arrives.
After
33 picks. It's not a great year for the Q. I'm down on every player almost. Nathan Gaucher could have been in the teens if he improved his game, but he's still the same player as he was last year. He's not scoring, but that's really not his fault because the support he gets on his line it's not in existence. He plays with James Malatesta, who only runs in straight lines and shoots and doesn't score. I think he had 85 shots and no goal. That was kind of run this season. 85 shots, no goals. So he was pretty unlucky, but it tells you that his shot selection is not that great either. Doesn't really have teammates to play with, but in the NHL, it's going to be a third liner who can play center, probably on the wing. He can work the boards, he can go through front of the net, tip jump shots. His shooting skills inside tight space have to be improved because he's not going to score that much with the form he currently has. But he can move the puck quickly off the wall and can make quick passes in transition. His game has space. He has skating skills, and he can work the front of the net, work the boards. He can pretty much tell the kind of player he's going to be in NHL already. So he's a safe projection with a limited upside for me, and that's about his range. I like most of the OHLers ahead of him.
Yeah, I've got Christian Kyrou, Ty Nelson, Isaiah George, Bryce McConnell-Barker in this range.
I like
Goyette.
And we haven't put Goyette down either.
And he has an A. So we should put Goyette.
I like Gaucher more than Goyette.
Then I'm Team Goyette then. No, I'm kidding. But he does have an A.
And Gaucher has a B. So,
and we should probably change Östlund to a B just based on the tenor of. He
has to be a B.
Yeah, Semenov we had in the first. I don't think he should have been in the first to begin with, but I still like his game.
I got Fergus over him.
Fergus ahead of him? Okay.
I got Fergus, Kyrou, Isaiah George over him.
We also had Lindgren in the first last time. Another one where I'm like, I don't know if he should have been, but
he's a problem.
Yeah, I just don't see a lot there.
Mechanically, he's not going to be able to do what he does up the next level. The hand is just like locked to his hip at all times, so his range of control is really narrow. He's not going to be able to move, weight shift. The skating suffers from similar kind of mechanical quirks. But I love the inside play. I love his confidence. But even against good forechecking teams, like I've seen him against Everett twice now, and in both those games, he couldn't do anything because Everett would just take him to the outside every single time. So he just punt.
Right.
I watched one of those games too. He is
He's
a tough
really
one.
tough
I was
one.
higher on him earlier in the season than I have been in some of my later viewings. He's young. He's very young, but I would have hoped to see some more strides this season, and it's almost maybe gone the opposite way a little bit in some of these later views.
We can't drop him too far though, just because he does high level things against mediocre teams. So
I still think he's a top 40, 45 guy.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I like all these guys we're talking. Kyrou, Semenoff. Those I think those guys are right in that mix there.
My I guess my favorite player here would probably be Kyrou. He's basically mini Mintyukov, as Lauren mentioned in the Slack. All activation, except he's a lot more shot focused, and he's got an NHL shot. Like, he can rip it. He's a great one-on-one defender. He knows how to engage at the right times. He overcommits a little bit, but he's very instinctually good defensively. He knows that when you are attacking a guy, you want to get it when he's about to receive the pass or when he's stick handling the puck. You don't want to try to reach in when he's leaning. So lots of really good elements of his game to appreciate. The skating is a bit of an issue. He's very narrow in his stance. So when he goes to turn, he can't really explode out of his turns at all because he's not leading with his upper body. There's no separation. And he does have a few stride mechanics, but I still think it's probably a 4.5 to 5 projection in the NHL. And that's good enough to play his activation, defense, breakout game. So Kyrou here is good. And on top of that, he's been on an absolute bender, and his underlines look incredibly strong.
Yeah, and he's smaller than Mintyukov too. I think he's a couple inches shorter, and they're basically about the same age. They're both late 03s. And yeah, I think I would have Kyrou before Nelson or George at this point.
Yeah, it's okay.
Let's roll with it then.
Kyrou at 36. Cool.
And then I'm gonna push for Paravalov too. I think that he deserves. I think he's a first rounder, to be honest with you. But if we're now in the early second, he's got a lot of skill, a lot of speed, keeps his head up, makes nice plays, gets into the middle of the ice. I think he's gonna be a good player.
And this aligns with Dylan's board too.
Just to bring up, we had McConnell Barker in the first time around.
We did.
But I think that was strongly, Rachel was pushing really hard for him. So,
and with his feet, I don't know how comfortable I was with BMB in the first. I think Mitch said he would be the lowest graded skater that we've ever had in that high.
I think Dilbo Blues is worse.
True, but we didn't have Del Bell Blues in the
right,
first.
yeah.
It's not going to be in this top 62. I don't think so.
Well, yeah. But we could do BMB in this spot because I don't think he's done anything to fall much further, So we could do BMB, then Kavochko.
Did you like Poitras more than BMB, Lauren?
No. I'm struggling on Poitras. I know there's something there, and I'm not seeing it. And I don't know what it is.
There's not much there, but it's just you could play the same kind of game in the NHL on the fourth line, right, on the third line wing. It's not that exciting.
Oh, it was with Haight. It's there's something there. There's something in that player, but it's not evident in game tape or in person. It's very frustrating. Oh, and then Nelson was in our first round too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm cool with him falling though.
We can keep pulling him down.
Yeah, and I know Cam is happy to see him plummet too.
I like Luno more than him, and I don't like Luno in this spot. So
well, we know how you like or don't like prospects, and by like or don't like, when you don't like. I'm
not too harsh on him. I'm realistic.
I will say that once we get to 40, we got to put Michael Fisher down. I know that's the highest range for Daniel G, but I'm so high on this kid, his mobility, his weight shifts, the deception, the way he gains the inside in the offensive zone. I haven't seen somebody this good in high school in my time scouting. If I had my way, he would be closer to 30, but I respect Daniel's work on that file. So just something
Daniel
to keep
put a
in
bug
mind.
in my ear. Yeah, he put a bug in my ear a little while ago. I've only had two ISO games on him, but dude, he is a lot of fun. Kid's got upside, hey?
He's spectacular. And he's so thin too. As he adds muscle, think about how much better the skating is going to be, his ability to play inside, his ability to ward off checks. He's going to be a hell of a player.
I have a question. Why do we have McConnell Barker at 38th?
Thank you.
Mitch walks away for like 30 seconds and is like, what's happened?
Yeah, what the hell?
Well,
Sorry,
we got a vote of confidence from Lauren, and we did have him in the last round, last
Yeah,
board.
we had Semenov in the first round. They do the same things, and one of them is a better skater.
Well, okay, then we could do 38 Semenov. Well, but we have
I
players.
guess McConnell Barker is a better shooter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it's a coin flip at this point. We could put them back to back and either or in front.
I would also take Isaiah George over both of them. And
We
Fergus,
could do that. We could go George,
And Fergus.
Semenov.
And Lindgren.
You like George more than Nelson, Mitch?
Oh, yeah, easily. There's a huge gap in puck skills, aggressiveness. Isaiah George doesn't have teammates in his eyes, but like once he learns that he has teammates, oh man, he's going to be good. Like
He's playing with blinders on.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't want to pass to Logan Mayu, I don't blame him. But
yeah, he's doing us
It's not
service for
getting
all
a
of us.
plus
Feminist
point.
icon Isaiah George.
I think there's a chance that Ty Nelson's not an NHLer, like a pretty decent chance.
My argument is, why is Jack Pert better than Ty Nelson? Because to me, they're the exact same player, except one of them likes to take clappers from the point all the time.
Well,
Jack Pert's having a hell of a season this year. Yeah.
he is, and Pert's also not a 2022 eligible.
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying, like, we're talking about the exact same size player, same tools, same projection. I'm not saying I'm pro Ty Nelson. I still have like 10 players from North America alone before I want Ty Nelson on here. But
Me too.
at the end of the
He's
day,
banging the table.
he skates fast, he shoots fast, he defends slightly.
Fast.
Like, I don't know, he just seems like a player we've historically had high on our board.
My last
Let's
viewing,
go.
I will confess, my last viewing of Ty Nelson was vile. But that happens. It's sample.
it's been rough lately.
Yeah,
Like I think he's one of
his
those
star is
players like
fading.
who has gone downhill as the season has.
His retrievals are problematic. And the way he lacks awareness, he doesn't know where his teammates are. He just looks at the boards and he rims it.
Like he
So
looks
that's
like
dirty.
he's in his own head. Like he
Yeah.
looks like Hunter Haight did at the beginning of the season.
I don't think he
He looks
realizes how
overwhelmed right
exceptional
now.
some of his tools are. Like, I don't think he understands the outer limits of his game and how far he can push that. Like, I don't think he's there yet. I will say, like, just based on the enthusiasm for the players we have mentioned, like, I would just put Michael Fisher. Like, I'm so happy to have us plant a flag on that player because he's exceptional. And the
All right,
sky
Michael
is the
Fisher at
limit.
38th.
And
So-
Isaiah George.
George.
But we should
30
probably put Poitras down at some point. I
like
don't
him.
see what anyone else is seeing, but I believe you guys.
All right, so Isaiah George, Patra, McConnell, Barker, Semenov. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Austin
And
should
then
be around this range. I don't think we should drop him too much.
Who
He's
is
not that great. Austin, because if we're comparing Poitras and Austin, it fits. One is more pacey and more physical. The other one is smarter and more supportive. So I would have him in this range. I don't know if Jimmy agrees. He says yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is something there with Aslan. I think he would get picked in this range. I don't think it's weird to have him here.
Well, we should also note, like, we got to put some respect on Dylan's name. He has Kovochko 35 to 45, slightly ahead of Paravalov. We of course have more confidence in Paravalov based on Cam's vouching, but like we should probably put Kovochko down at 43. Then we could do Osland
Yeah.
at 44.
How about
Hey, wait a second. Hold up. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy. But Adam Ingram, he's all the way in the mid-second now. Like, I hate this. Okay, let's talk. Ingram has to be ahead of Osland for him. Has to be. The hands, the intelligence as a playmaker. I know Mitch isn't around to rebut that right now, which I appreciate. He's putting up huge points on an awful team in the USHL. His defensive work rate is high. His defensive intelligence is high. Like I like Adam Ingram's game so much that I will vouch for him in the face of declining returns from Mitch, and even Joey's starting to kind of lessen his opinion of Ingram. But I think even he would have him in this range.
Good thing I have my headphones on. They're wireless, so I can still hear the entire conversation and just judge from afar. The unfortunate aspect of this is that I disagree with everything that you said about Ingram, other than he shoot and work hard.
Other than he shoot and work hard, you're making me sound like such a dunce. Like,
well, I just don't see the things that you see. Like, I only have 6 viewings, right? I got my 6th one in yesterday evening, and I don't know. I guess I have to go back and watch him the first half of the season when apparently he was better, and maybe he's healthier. But
here's what I will say is Joey is on the same page as you, as like the game is getting away from him as the season progresses, but he also is on the same page as me as having seen these qualities through September, October, November. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we can, and like the issue. Okay, the biggest issue that I have is that we can use the argument that, hey, like, he's playing on a bad team, and it's like, well, he's consistently like the 2nd or 3rd best draft eligible when I've seen them. I was like, I don't watch isolation tape normally, and Issa guy and especially Varner have been better. It's like I just like, I can acknowledge the tools if the skating comes, but like, he's just, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is he's Colton Dock to me. Like, it's a shot and hands, and you're hoping that everything else will improve as he learns how to skate and gets stronger. To be fair, Doc has looked decent enough this year, but yeah, I just haven't seen any of the qualities that are being discussed here.
Look at how they massacred my boy. There's a film reference that you won't get. And that's from Godfather.
We have Joey has Hudson over Ingram.
He does. This is true, but he'd have them in this range, having spoken with Joey. So we could put Hudson down ahead. I really like Hudson. I understand the obstacles in front of him, and they are.
It's too early.
They are substantial. Oh my god! But if it's too early for Hudson, I don't even know if Ingram's going to make this board.
Oh, Furcus. We forgot Furcus. Sorry, Furcus has to be over Patra, I think. I know.
I'm not in there. I don't have any objections.
All right.
Why?
Because Furcus is scoring a lot, but the primary thing here is that he has a lot of interesting qualities while being like 150 pounds. He can absolutely bomb it at 150 pounds. He protects the puck really well at 150 pounds. He can pass through pressure and make all sorts of high skill plays at 150 pounds. He's just very inconsistent, very slight. His 5-on-5 impact is all over the place, but there's a lot of reason to believe that he's not just Braden Tracy, although I think Braden Tracy is now an insane scorer in the AHL. So maybe that
Where did that come from? Like,
I'm so happy.
This has happened to me with so many.
I liked him.
I love Braden Tracy.
So I loved him in his draft year.
I just have Moose Jaw bias.
And his D+1 and D+2 were so bad, and now he's the old Braden Tracy, which good for him. It's cool. So okay, we should put Östlund down at 44 then, probably.
Yep.
And David was advocating. Well, we've got Lindgren too. We should put Lindgren at 45.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
you can put Luno around there too.
Oh, we still haven't put down Kovochko, and Dylan is a big fan of Kovochko. I wish I'd seen more of him. I don't really have a read on his game, but I know he's a big fan. We should respect that.
Is that OHL or Ilya Kovochko?
I have
no, he's yeah, I thought he was for a second, but no, he's in the MHL.
I have 3 OHLers in this range too. Jelsma, Van Steen's Old Delic.
All guys who they're just sound effects. I don't know how to describe their games with words. Just like brr, car crash noises.
It's team automatopoeia. That's what they are. Even their names are onomatopoeias.
I mean, how can you beat Coach Adelic?
Yeah, it's great.
All names team.
Rutger and Rigordy.
I just don't like his game at all.
It's really the skating that's a big problem. Yeah. It affects everything else. The way he handles, his decision making. It's really a big problem.
He overestimates his ability
as the
as
same player that JD sees as Ingram. Like to me, he's when JD describes Ingram, I'm like, that's Rucker McGorty.
Well,
Yeah.
Joey has Hudson, Ingram, and Chesley ahead of McGroarty.
Chesley.
We
shouldn't forget about him.
He's scoring again. The
Yes.
Jake Sanderson incarnate is back.
Yes, low end Jake Sanderson.
Yeah, that's
Discount
exactly
bin
him.
Jake Sanderson.
Above average tools. He can make some plays sometimes, but his decision making is really slow. It looks like it's just like space.
We should also
general.
talk about Yuri Kulich, especially because Marek's been just sitting by idly for like a half hour at this point. Let's get Marek in on the call.
Well, I'm just thinking, I wanted to ask Lauren and Mitch about Shapovalov first, because during the World Junior Championship, I had a feeling that Kulich is maybe a first rounder. But since the moment when he came back to the Czech League, he didn't have much, ice time, and he's been dealing with the games here. It's getting better right now as the playoffs have started. But I have a feeling that I would push Shapovalov ahead of Kulich as of now. He was really solid in all of my viewings. He was driving the offense. His puck protection and reach did everything he wanted to do. He can find a passing lane in tight areas. He can work under pressure. He's really strong in front of the net. I don't know. Kulich, on the other hand, is very creative. I feel like he's one of the most underrated players of this draft, and he plays his two-way game. He's really responsible. He was also very solid during the Hlinka Gretzky Cup, right? And I like how creative he is, especially on the power play. He plays, like I said, his two-way game, and the way he's looking for a passing lane is also really interesting. Like he can find his linemate with a backdoor feed, and this is also a really close one for me. And I wanted to hear Lauren and Mitch about, Shapovalov.
I liked Shapovalov a lot at the Hlinka, I should say. Marek, did you see him in the Hlinka?
Yeah, I was
He
there
was
personally
really
watching
good.
all of the games. Yeah, he admitted that he was really nervous, that he would be even better if he was nervous during the tournament. But yeah, he was definitely the second team after Kulich, in my opinion, during the Hlinka Gretzky.
I haven't watched enough, so I don't have grades in for him. I haven't watched enough as Agna, aside from ISOs of Minchukov, but from what I've seen, I've really liked. I don't have enough to offer an opinion, I don't think.
Okay, yeah.
I have him over Ludwinski, who we have at 31 at my ranking. I really like Shapovalov. I think he kind of lacks a little bit of an offensive identity right now. Like he has a lot of individual components. He just kind of struggles sequencing them. But one thing that I've really liked this year is his delay game. So like on the breakout, instead of just rushing plays ahead, because skating is a bit of a limiting factor for him, he cuts back, lets the guy fly back, and then he takes the middle of the ice and then works from the middle out. And he really understands how to do that in all three zones, where he just kind of lets guys fly by him, get them on his back, move to the inside. There's some really, really advanced stuff from him. It's just the consistency. And again, like he's very much a player who's kind of compartmentalized. Like this is the shift where he's going to be, the off puck scorer. And then the next shift, he's like, okay, I'm a passer this time. And he lacks some adaptability as a result. But the upside with him is quite high. Like I think there's middle six forward upside, which I know we were just kind of clowning on middle six forwards, but like that's a haul in this draft. Like that's a big deal.
I was going to say
Like,
that's
that
the
might
theme
end
of the year.
Yeah.
A player,
okay, you know what?
Guy might be like the 10th best player in the class.
Yeah, that's basically Owen Beck's case. Like,
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, given that, and Lauren, you don't have like you said you don't have a great read on Shapovalov, but would you be comfortable with putting Shapovalov, if not ahead of Ludwinski? Do we go back, because that's a pretty good endorsement from Mitch, from Marek? I liked Shapovalov a lot at the Hlinka. Can we put him at 32? Oh, that pushes Casey to that second round.
It doesn't matter.
No, okay. Well,
I think I like him in that range. Yeah, I would definitely have him before Goyette at that point.
how do we?
Which is, I think, 34.
The issue with putting him up is that it completely annihilates my OHL ranking too. So like, no matter when we move him up, we got to move up to 31, but that's only to respect my ranking. But then it doesn't respect Lauren's at all.
Where did I have him?
It's a complicated one. That's why I'm trying to gauge the room.
Well, I
before
had
we
him
make
30 to 50, which is a massive range.
That's a pretty big range.
Yeah. That's the problem is I don't have a good reading on him, but I feel like that's a general, like he should be in this ranking somewhere.
Okay, why don't we split the difference? So Fisher is 2 spots ahead of where Daniel has him. We put him at 38 and move back from there.
I think if Lauren doesn't have a great read on him and Mitch has seen him enough and Marek is vouching for him, we should put him at 31 or 32.
Well, the issue is that I like all the OHLers we've ranked after him ahead of him.
I can't.
Then I don't know.
And I can't speak that confidently because my sample is only the Hlinka.
Okay, then split it and put him somewhere in the middle.
You like him more than McConnell Barker or less?
Oh yeah, it's the same. They're the same projection. Just one of them is better at doing the McConnell Barker things, and it ain't McConnell Barker, unfortunately.
Right. So I feel like we should shove him between McConnell Barker and Poitras.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay,
42.
that's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that.
Okay, I'm like my ability to sit by idly as we fade Ingram is. I'm vouching. I'm slamming the table.
We can do Ingram here as long as you got McGroarty here for some for some theme continuity, right?
Yeah, intellectual consistency. But then we also have to place Hudson at some point, like maybe towards
outside of the top 62.
63. I mean, we're doing 64.
Yeah,
so
63.
Am I the only McGroarty fan here?
I am. I really liked him in one of my viewings. Yeah.
I also watched the same game you're referring to, and it was wild. That goal that he scored, where he took it off the floor and went backhand under the goalie's stick as he was spinning around. Yeah, that was crazy.
He has a ton of skill. Yeah,
but he plays like he
smart.
has wheels. Is the problem for me?
This is very true. So does Ingram.
Yeah, but he has better puck protection mechanics. Do not push back on that one. I mean,
he's not as much as a bull though as McGroarty, right? It's like, well, I agree that like technically Ingram might be a little bit better. Will be that way going forward because McGroarty does have an edge to his game that Ingram doesn't. But this horse is like long past decomposition. Let's just find something else to move on to.
Fair. At least we've dispelled the notion that this is a hive mind. You know, this is good for us.
And to be fair, it's mostly just me being like, it's mostly just JD being like, hey, watch this player, and me just absolutely hating him for some reason.
just to spite me. That's it. And I'm waiting for you to send me to watch someone and me just, you know what? I might even like the player, but I will just endlessly dump on him in Slack just to get you back.
This is the thing. You're just going to sit there. You're like, Christian Kyrou. You're going to start filing game points. Be like, yeah, Christian Kyrou, dynamic. He can move it. He can shoot it. Oh, so many attributes. But like, Mitch thinks he's good, and I got to get revenge. So
yeah.
Screw him.
What if he actually sucks, and I can't qualify it or quantify it, but I just want that to be the case?
The good news is that Ingram's underlying data is good. So. Yeah.
Okay.
He's like 90th percentile and expected goals per 60, largely because he plays like 10 minutes at even strength for some reason. That's mind blowing.
Well, and David, you liked Luno.
I like Chesley more than Luno, and I like Chesley more than McGroarty. I think it's his range.
I like Chesley a lot too. I should say, like I think he's one of the premier play stoppers in this class.
Joey called him a boom or bust prospect, and he's not that type of boom or bust prospect. He's not the highly skilled guy who doesn't respect systems or anything like that. But it feels like if you just add that quarter of a second, if he just speeds up his decision making by a quarter of a second, it's going to be much better. He just becomes more aware. If he starts trying plays instead of just making short passes, simple passes, I think he could really explode in college, both offensively and become even better defensively. He has the tools, the skating, the handling too, even if the puck gets off his stick at times.
We should also
there are tools and a path to development.
And Kulich too. We should talk about Kulich. Well, we did just talk about him, but this let's throw Marek a bone on that one. Let's put Kulich down at 51.
He's so good defensively. I love watching him play. Like he just closes space on guys so fast. Like his footwork on closing space, like the way that he angles and stuff like that, is so good that you could show that to any defensive prospect in this draft, and they would learn something from it.
Yeah, he also managed to play with a great pace during the World Junior Championship, and I really was looking forward to see him playing against Canada and see the pace if he can manage to keep with them, and he had no issue with it, and actually he was in the top 6, second line winger, and he was really dangerous, responsible defensively. He's definitely a second rounder for me.
Luno is a good pick at 52. I thought he was a top 20 pick coming to this year, but he hasn't improved. He's the same player, a bit better defensively. He cares more about the defensive game, but his skating is a pretty big problem. He's really heavy, and I'm not saying he has a weight problem, but just his stride is not. When he gets into forward stride, he really slams the ice. He's not getting much speed from his stride. It's really high. He lacks ankle flexion. He's a bit hunched over. He has a ton of mechanical problems. He's very agile, so he has 4-way mobility. He can slide along the blue line. He can shake forecheckers on regroups and beat them one-on-one. He has handling moves. He can manipulate them sometimes, but you really need the opponent to create the speed difference for him. So if someone is rushing at him, he can beat them because he's going to fake them, a bit like Hudson. He's going to fake them and move around them. But if he has to catch up to a defensive play or even catch up to the rush, sometimes he's a bit behind the play. And I think his skating is going to be a pretty big limiter in the professional game. Even if he cares more about the defensive game now, he's a bit more aware. And offensively, he's not creating much. Unless he has a clear play, like a scissor play, someone is coming up to the blue line, he can go down. And then he has the handling skills to get inside the defensive box and create something. He has really great flashes, but some pretty big limitations. If he takes steps offensively in the next viewings I'll have of him, we can move him up a lot, like in the first round. But right now, I'm just not confident in his projection.
Okay, I put Hudson at 53 because Joey is on Hudson as a first rounder train. And we should probably expect that. And also Hudson is just like guy who does stuff. And we're at the stage of guys who don't do stuff.
We would have such a perfect defenseman if we could take Seamus Casey and Lane Hudson.
Yeah.
You'd have the perfect offensive defenseman. Like top 10 pick. Like boom.
More skill and the brain to go with it a bit.
Yeah.
But it would still be small, and it's something you have to value in defensemen anyway.
Yeah, that's true. We should also note, given the phase of this project we find ourselves in, that Dylan had Alexander Palevin. Since we don't seem particularly enthusiastic about any of these players, I feel like that's worth noting.
I have a couple.
I have 2 more Swedes. I would like to get into top 64.
Lay it on us.
I have 2 defensemen, big defensemen, good skating defensemen, defensive defensemen, or 2-way defensemen.
I'm noticing a theme.
They play on the same team too. The first guy, Elias Pettersson, you know that name?
Heard of it before.
Yeah.
Not
kind
a
of big in my neck of the woods.
This guy is a hardworking defensive defenseman. He has played in the SHL, combining with junior play, and I think he reads the game well. He got great range. He closes gaps. He competes hard, and I think he plays well with the puck. And I like his skating. So I think that's you need to have. For a defensive defenseman, you need to have good skating, and he activates in the offensive end too. He's not a big point getter or won't be a power play defenseman, but when he gets to the offensive zone, he moves. He tries to do stuff. So I kind of like that too. When he has, risen during the year and impressed me more and more. So I think he could be a second round pick. And I also like an older player, born 03, Simon Forsmark, who's also playing more in the SHL. He's a great skater. He has great timing, kind of soft, but great timing, I think. And I think his physical play has been better during the year. He's taken more initiative in the SHL, and he also moves a lot in the offensive zone. He follows through on plays, offensive plays, and I think he's more of a two-way defenseman, kind of like him too. I think he can also be a good second-round pick. So those two I would like to push for before we get to 64.
I also have someone that we have to place on the board, and that is Jack Hughes. His progression over the season has been really stunning to see. He's trying more dangerous plays offensively. His ability to take the puck off the boards and inside has really stood out. I don't think he can break down a defenseman one-on-one in space. He lacks the handling skill, elbow to his side, not particularly creative, doesn't set up his dekes all that well, but he has good sense, good work rate, plays solid defensive hockey, and acquitted himself well in a top 6 role with Northeastern for much of the season. And I think, if anything, I'm looking at the board right now and kind of kicking myself because he should probably be closer to 40 than 50. In fact, I would be so bold as to say that he should perhaps be at 40. And Mitch, you've seen some Hughes. What do you think? Like, I feel like I kind of covered this one well. This is one prospect where it's like, I got this guy down so well, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I think, one of the big things is he's very thin, and you can kind of see that he's knocked off the puck very easily. But he already understands like how to engage, how to protect the puck, how to spin off pressure. He's very much like Jagger Firkus for me. It's almost the same projection, like thin guy who has flashes of skill, but it does require like a little bit of assembly, a little bit of imagination, and he's amazing defensively.
Yeah,
like
his
I have
defensive
Jack
game
Hughes,
is beyond.
I have him 26th among the North American players, so like that would put us pretty much at like the 35 range at this stage. So like it was just an oversight that I bring him up earlier.
Yeah, on my part too. I'm supposed to be the college, the college guy. So why don't we drop him at 40 then?
Ty Nelson.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Spiritually similar to Lane Hudson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, somewhat.
His projection is better. It's easier to project him to a number 6 role in the NHL than Hudson. Even if I love Hudson, it's nothing against him. It's just that sometimes you might like him.
There's something suiting about David's like loving a player that he wouldn't have in the top 2 rounds. Like that's the extent of David's love for a prospect.
I like his game more than you, Mitch. I think it's just that I don't believe in a 5'8" player who has average skating ability can really make it, or the chances are super low. So I would have him lower than this.
David's going full hockey man on us.
Yeah, let's just get Nelson on the board. Oh, Jordan Gustafson.
I know
go
Russ
ahead, Lauren.
really
Sorry,
likes.
I have done this
no.
like
it's
3
okay.
times already. No,
it's
go.
Right. There's 3. Well, the 3 OHL players as we approach the last 10 players on this board. Jelsma, Van Steensel, Delic. I will fight to the death for all 3 of them to make this board. Like, just they. Fimis has been injured for the last month. It's fine if we don't have him on here. And I feel the same way about Delbo Baluz because I only ranked him because I think someone's going to take him in the first round. Because I think that's the perception.
The good news is that we get to do our own ranking, so screw that.
Yeah, so really, really like Jelsma, small, speedy, works well down low, kind of does all the right things, a little bit inconsistent at both ends, but I chalk that up to not having played last year. Van Steensel's defensive game is out of this world. I mean, I guess I have like this thing this year for draft eligible Owens in the OHL, but I'm really big fan, really big fan of Van Steensel. And his shot lately, he's been shooting a lot more, and he's been finishing. And then Delic just does all the small things. It works great in small areas, finds a space. He's the driver of that line with Goyette and Kanyan. So I think he needs to be rewarded for his efforts. Okay. Probably, projection wise for all 3, I think probably middle 6, bottom 6 sort of thing.
Yeah.
What we could do is alternate between the OHL lot that Lauren put forward and the SHL lot, Sweden lot that Jimmy put forward.
Yeah, I like the sounds of both players Jimmy mentioned. Actually, they both sound pretty fascinating. I think they're worth some effort. And I have a couple of players. I'll save one of them to the end. But Jordan Gustafson, Seattle Thunderbirds, very mechanically sound player, very inconsistent, but strong off puck offense. Knows how to get open. Knows how to get in the slot. Knows how to get open outside the slot. Good off the cycle. The consistency is a major concern, but he is also scoring, which we're at the stage now where people aren't scoring, and it is a little bit concerning. So he does have that feather in his cap, but really interesting player. I think he probably deserves to be on here as well. And I would take him over the 3 OHLers, but not by much.
So how do we make this happen?
Go Gustafson, Jelsma, Pedersen. Does that sound? Let's start with that. Does that make sense?
Sounds good to me.
Do we have to include anyone from Dylan's list?
Well, we have to do Pelevin at some point. If we haven't done Pelevin yet.
Why don't we slide him in here?
Yeah, 59.
Yeah. And then maybe Van Steensel or I forget the name of the other Swedish D.
Forsmark.
Forsmark.
My Danish is corrupting my Swedish pronunciation. Sad times. Yeah, we could do him, and then so Van Steensel first. I mean, I'm a big Van Steensel fan as well. He's a point per game in the last 20. He contributes every situation now, and mechanically, he just seems to keep getting better. Like the shot was something that I thought would be a weakness coming into the season, and now it looks more like a clear NHL strength. Really interesting player.
Sold.
Any objections to this?
And in the last spot, I like Otto Salin out of Finland. Oh, wait. No, it's 64. That's right. So we have 2 more spots.
I like Ryan Green, Cedric Windon.
Are those players all there?
I think it's a little early for Guindon.
I think he basically discounts Shane Wright, and I am a huge fan of this. He's probably my favorite prospect to watch in the OHL right now. He's awesome, but the tools are the issue here, right? The tools are.
Well, he has been scoring a lot lately. Like he had that 4-goal game that I watched recently, where it's just like the puck was just going in out of everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan Green, I know on the team side, is getting a lot of love right now.
Oh, Mikey Milne. This is easy. Green and Milne.
Yeah.
I can't believe Milne isn't on here yet.
Should he be higher?
Oh yeah, Milne is Jelsma. He's literally just older Jelsma.
Okay. And do we need to bring up Natalie Clemore, or is it too early for him? From someone
I think we're at 64.
Yeah, I just want to talk about him a bit.
Go
Mitch,
for it.
you've seen Lamour, and I'm starting to have English pronunciations of French names. Lamour and your WHLers. Do you think he belongs on this board, or like at 65 on the next board, or is it too early for him?
Well, 20 years ago, we would have him like second overall.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, things have changed. And the thing is, if he didn't grow, we probably would be talking about him as a first rounder, because he was just starting to like get more coordinated. He was starting to make offensive plays last year, and then he grew again, and then the whole process restarted. And he's at the stage now, like he's so tall that it's disadvantaged in hockey, because now everyone can get lower than you. Anyone can knock you off balance. Anyone can out leverage you. So I really don't know. It's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one.
Let's think about this and come back in the next meeting.